Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PlayVS Spring 2021 Fortnite Championships. I'm Fallout, joined alongside this guy. It's Reese. Reese, my friend, how you doing today?
I'm feeling fantastic. Super excited to get into some kind of solo gameplay today. You know, we've been looking at tons of trios over the last months, which has been really, really fun, but solo gameplay is always fantastic.
Where it all started, where we get to watch and enjoy the gameplay today. I couldn't agree more, man. It's going to be great to play and watch and enjoy some solos competition with the best of the best across collegiate. And guess what? Let's go ahead and take a look at the schedule for the day so you know exactly when everything's going to take place. We're going to be kicking off with our NA East Finals. That'll be starting right now in just moments. After that, we'll jump into our NA West Finals. Teams had to qualify through here, through qualifiers, through heats yesterday, and that leads to today. And of course, we'll have trios next week as well. And guess what? Let's take a look at the scoring as well to see exactly how they're going to be competing. Reese, walk us through it.
Yeah, so as soon as you get to that top 70, that's when you start gaining placement points for every single threshold. You go all the way up to that top 20 when you're getting 2, top 5 when you're getting 3 per everyone, and then that big victory royale is worth 5. Each elimination is going to be worth 4 points. So if you've done the mental arithmetic quickly, as I definitely did right on the spot right now, there's 97 potential placement points available, and then every single elimination worth 4. So definitely an placement heavy focused game today.
Big brain. I don't know how you calculated all that fast in real time.
It was quick. Impressive. It was quick. Trust me.
Yeah, clearly. And let's also take a look at the prize pool so we can see what exactly is at stake. We have $100,000 in Scholastic Awards today across the East and West competitions. $50,000 for both East and West. And of course, first place will take home $4,000 in Scholastic Awards, all the way down to fifth place for $1,125. And then, of course, we get into triple digits with $100 for 26th through 50th in Scholastic Awards, which is awesome to see. Of course, the opportunity for these players to be supported in scholastic awards throughout their collegiate and college journeys and awarded for playing Fortnite, which is great. And Reese, I love this competition format. I love the fact that we get to cast some collegiate gameplay. I know you're over across the pond in the EU, but I will say I was taking a look at the player list, taking a look at some of the universities these players are representing, from Indiana University all the way down to schools in Florida in the Northeast. We have a variety of players here. Walk us through this first page. What are you seeing?
So we've got some of the best collegiate players here. We got Disrod. Yesterday he placed 3rd in his heat. So really coming into strong, right? Already in a very good position here. We've got Owl, we've got Posick, we've got Posed. If you've watched any other high-level competition of Fortnite right now, you'll recognize these names. And they are reflected here in the collegiate champions as well. So we have some of the top players playing in this games today. And if you move over, we got this next page. We've got a ton of other names coming in. There's one that's really taken my eye, which is Eric is vibing. Now, I'm hoping, really hoping we're going to see some kind of vibing gameplay. Like, I'm going to steal your joke from earlier. You already said we want to see a little bit of emoting going on in the gameplay all the way through. I'm hoping we've seen something fantastic coming out of Eric.
I'm right there with you. I hope my man Eric is straight vibing throughout. We got Chang, of course, representing the Georgia Institute of Technology, a great school, by the way. So shout out to Chang from Vanish. Excited to see what he can do. And take a look at the next page here. We got Bizik, who I know is a heavy favorite to win this one. We're going to talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. We got the Truculent Gamer. I don't even know what Truculent means, but my vocabulary is clearly expanding. This clearly is the scholastic and collegiate competition here. And walk us through this last page. Who stands out to you the most?
Look, the biggest one that stands out here is Seven. We've already had a trios competition in the last season, right, in the fall, and he ended up winning with Beggs and Mars as well. So he's already won, so he's potentially coming back for the 2 times, and also Mars was on that previous page as well. So they're going to be going head-to-head, both seeing if they can get that kind of 2-time championship title to come out, and they're the only 2 who are current champions. So, you know what? They're definitely 2 to watch out for.
I love it. And on that note, I want to ask your predictions. Do you think one of the 2 of them are going to win it, or who do you think is going to take the whole competition?
Look, it's going to be between one of these 2. Like I said, they're going to be going head-to-head. They're going to definitely have those eyes on the 2 times kind of award, but also Bizik, right? You mentioned him a little bit there, but he's an absolute solo demon. He's a demon. He's won so many cash cups back when he was playing on console. Now, obviously, we're on PC. He ended up coming 2nd in his heat yesterday, so he's obviously on fire coming in today. There's a ton of top-level competition going out, but I think these 3 are kind of my top 3 picks. You said 1. I'm going to kind of just stay back so I can have a better prediction if I say top 3.
Overachiever and making yourself look smarter in the long run. That's brilliant. Clearly done this a time or 2. And by the way, controller game represent with Bizik. However, I'm going to go with Disrod. I got to hold it down for my fellow Midwesterner. Disrod going to the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. And of course, he's been looking great. We all know Disrod. If you watch FNCS and competitive Fortnite, I think he's the heavy favorite coming into this one to see what he can do. So, variety of players competing here. You also have Boxo and Jelly, who took 1st and 2nd place respectively in the heats yesterday. They dominated. There's some other players to watch, in my opinion. But guess what? Gameplay is just about ready. I think we're going to be throwing over to gameplay here in a moment. I got to ask you, what are you most excited about in this competition? You mentioned solos earlier. Anything else you're looking forward to watching today?
Look, I'm always excited for the last game. Like, that's it. As the games build up, you know what? The leaderboards start to kind of solidify a little bit more. And as soon as it gets towards that end, that last game, you're going to start to see some kind of stakes getting higher. Every single elimination placement matters more and more as the leaderboard starts to solidify. So as it comes to the end, that's always the most exciting part for me.
Couldn't agree more. Really, game 4, game 5 is when that story kind of tends to unfold. The players that are ahead start to lead the trail by a significant margin. You start to understand who is really competing, contesting that top 5, that top 3. And given the prize pool differential we saw earlier, it's a quite significant difference from the first place $5,000 prize all the way to the 5th place $1,000 prize. So every single placement matters. Every single game matters in the solos competition. Consistency is key. I'm excited to see which players can be most consistent. And honestly, I'm just looking forward to solo gameplay again. We've been watching a lot of trios, as you said. We get to enjoy some solos here, some sweaty end games, and given the the scoring format, I think it's going to be a little bit placement heavy, as we talked about earlier. So you're going to see some stacked late games as well. But guess what? Gameplay is ready. We're going to be jumping into game number 1 here shortly. Casting alongside my man Reese for the first time. It's an honor. Walk me through it. What are we seeing so far?
Look, right now, we've got the map on the left, and this is kind of what we want to be looking at. There's a ton of power positions on the map right now. The bunker chests are something that we're going to be looking out for, right? They have a high chance of getting much better loot right there. And, we've seen Kinney right now on the kind of west-hand side of the map, and he has potential to get one of those bunker chests. It's on one of the islands that you're kind of seeing off down to the far left-hand side there, but still, in this building that he's at, in the fancy view house, as it's called, there's plenty of opportunities to get good loot here, too. There's an AI that you can get upgrades for. There's plenty of mechanical parts. So at this point, he's in a good spot, already setting himself up for the day.
We're going to jump on board with Banks in the Dirty Docks. It looks like Dirty Docks is going to be split 50-50 between two competitors here. And for any of our parents or siblings or anyone else that's watching, it's not as familiar with competitive Fortnite. When we say 50-50, we mean they're going to be splitting a drop spot and splitting the loot 50-50, or they might fight and force a 50-50 fight, which at that point obviously becomes a little bit risky, like we're seeing right here. This is a 50-50 initial off the side island here, and it looks like it's going to be Swim Coach Monkey swimming his way into the first elimination of the day. That's going to be one. A little bit of dance to follow here. You'll like to see it. Shot Monkey.
You know, he's going to be vibing just like Eric was, and that's going to be huge for him because that potentially might alpha up that drop spot for him. But another elimination over in Steamy Stacks, and this drop's looking a little bit contested here. That's one player that we know of has already been eliminated. There's two more in the area, and there's also one more up in the beach to the north here. So Steamy Stacks looking awfully contested in solos. You know, we haven't seen high-level solo gameplay outside of the solo Cash Cup, so I was kind of wondering, how are some of these POIs kind of going to be split? How many players are going to go to some of these areas and move over to Lazy Lake? You can see there's 3 players in this area right now. You know, another spot that we'd say is definitely looking to be a little bit more contested.
Yeah, typically in the solos you'll see Lazy Lake be a bit more contested. So interesting stuff here. You know, if you're a fan of Benji Fishy and a lot of other top players, you're familiar with this drop spot in solo competitions. Right now, we'll see Daddy P don't miss. We'll see if that's true, if he can live up to his name here in a moment. As he's got a little bit of a crossbow action here. Let's see if he doesn't miss the crossbow. Now, don't need too much of that. I don't think in-game play here, but looks like one of the individuals at Lazy Lake is going to leave, and I think they'll just be content splitting Lazy Lake in thirds, out fighting early on. They want to make it to late game here, and we talked about the format earlier and the scoring, but it is a very placement-heavy prizing. Walk me through why that is. I know you were taking a look at the prizing before we went live here.
Yeah, so, you know, there's a ton of placement points available, right? There's 97 available, and you'd have to get 24 eliminations to be able to even get more points on eliminations. So that's just, unfortunately, if we see that, you know, wow. I'll put it that way. If we see a 24 elimination game, I'll be all for it. So these players are going to be alive, and you know, there's still 94 players alive right now, and that may drop one little bit as we have Boomer currently in an engagement kind of to the south of Misty Meadows. And this is kind of why I alluded to earlier, where players fighting over that bunker chest. You can see Boomer's already got it. He's managed to get that purple SMG at this point, and it looks like he's now trying to disengage, and exactly leading into what I was saying about that placement heavy format. You're going to see smart plays like this where two players starting to get into an interaction, right? They're trying to engage, they're trying to fight, but notice they don't really want to. They're just kind of put in that situation sometimes. Yeah,
and even though Boomer had the disadvantage, the individual high ground decided not to take that fight, but here we go. Speaking of taking a fight, Hinsey is going to get taken out by Stendo at the top left of your screen. Stendo looking for the double. Can he get it? Connects for the low ground. Quick edit shot on Jaith, who is also vibing. So we got Eric and Jaith both vibing in this lobby, confirmed. We'll see how much Jaith is vibing after this fight, as he currently has high ground and he has the shield advantage over Stendo. Advantage currently in favor of Jaith, but Stendo has a slight momentum advantage. He just got that pick on Hinsey. Looks like Jaith knows he has the HP advantage. He's going to take it. He sees whites. He might as well smell red as a shark in the water here. He's going to be pushing for this 11.
Yeah, and they both have fantastic loot. We've seen that they both have purple or gold shotguns at this point, so a huge availability. Any of these could just be turned around any second, right? You don't want to get too close. You want to keep your distance, just exactly as these two players are, but shot connects on Jaith right now. The playing field's getting a little bit more even, but he does have 2 minis still remaining, so trying to keep on the high ground. He's trying to play it slow. He's not trying to do anything stupid. And as you can see, exactly, yet again, what we mentioned earlier, Jaith disengaging. Still 91 players alive, which means that the Storm Surge this game is going to absolutely be insane. And I don't know if this is going to change through the course of the day, but right now, this is going to be a very, very slow start to a game where these players are really going to have to be strategic about their movements and every single engagement that they take.
Yeah, and on that Storm Surge topic, I think that's a wise decision. That's the textbook play, the right play from Jaith. He got the tags he needed. That's going to help him with Storm Surge later on. And recognize, you know what, it's not worth my life. And honestly, Stendo getting that one crack with the pump from long range was probably enough for Jaith to say, all right, not worth it at this point. Be back on reset. Stendo is chilling from a Storm Surge perspective. So is Jaith. We'll see Rix on screen. He gets an elimination himself. Now Exceed is quite literally on the chase, on the prowl against It's Just Hector.
Yeah, and this is kind of one of the things that we've seen, right? When these games get really, really stacked, all of these players notice that they need Storm Surge tags. So when you see Exceed, he's obviously get that white damage onto Hector there. He knows he has a significant advantage, him being 200 HP. He's going to start to aggress this fight, right? Potentially just to get a little bit more Storm Surge damage, right? And he's being also very, very good with his materials, just using those ramps edited down so he has just a little bit less materials to waste, right? Just 2 rather than building back up. And again, using that gas can to try and pressure and waste the opponent's build down below. But this fight is now slowed down. It's come to a stalemate where Exceed does not want to engage back in because his opponent may have healed up, which we see that he could. He's also been tagged from players all around. He's now in a dangerous spot where if he stays in this kind of area for too long, it's going to be really, really tough because rotating later on when players are eager for that Storm Surge damage is going to be very, very, very tough.
Point. We'll keep referencing that. Storm Surge going to play a crucial effect. Yep. See Exceed on screen now. Exceed goes to Bay State College, right outside of Boston, Massachusetts. So he's trying to channel his inner Boston sports team success, Patriots and the like. Well, we get my man Jedi John, who spelled John the right way, by the way, no H, as a fellow John with no H. You like to see it. Taking on some raptors, some NPCs, some animals on screen. But he's going to get tagged. Actually, another one. He's just getting absolutely hunted right now. This is not ideal for him, as he only has 4 minis to his name, now down to 2.
You know what? This happened to me the other day in Arena, and I was, you know, livid, we'll say, at the moment while it was happening. And right now, John's in a high-level tournament going on. I'm sure this is the last thing that he wants, is to get in this kind of situation. Just trying to elevate himself away, maybe, but he seems to have 4 Raptors on him right now, and he seems to be getting... you know, we're talking about Storm Surge. I think these Raptors are going for their own tags as well. They've got a team that they need to get their damage up for at this point. So he's managed to... seems to be getting away from the NPCs right now. He's got himself in a nice, safe position, but he has wasted a little bit of his shields for that. You notice he's not 100 shields anymore, and only has 2 minis remaining in his inventory, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult if he has to rotate and he gets tagged again. And he's only going to have 2 minis to heal himself up with there. But moving over to Cheng, in a bit of a sticky situation, as we can see so many players on the map down below. And this is kind of what I referred to earlier. If you're going in an area with lots of other players around, you have to rotate early and get out, because it's going to be very, very clustered like this. This rotate could be difficult for him.
Cheng, mentioned earlier, Georgia Tech, very, very great school here in the U.S., especially in the sciences or engineering. So we already know Cheng has got that big brain. We'll see if he can use it here to his advantage and his success. Going to get to full health, full shields, courtesy of the Slurp Truck. And not in zone just yet. We'll rotate through, but he needs to be a little bit careful, because you can see here, 4 players nearby, make it 5 with someone just north of Cheng. And of course, going for that Storm Surge tag, you know they're going to probably try to poke and prod at least a bit against one another, as Cheng here has no eliminations to his name just yet. So we'll see how he decides to play this, if he decides to play aggressive, but he's keeping his head in a swivel, looking for opportunities to get Storm Surge on people that are late rotating. Now he's going to have to do what looks like a max rotation. He's going to try and get a head start there.
Yeah, that's why some of these players had to rotate a little bit earlier than this. And the reason there's so many players in this area is because a lot of the times players will sit in zone, and there's actually a chug cannon that you can get from inside Slurpy Swamps, and you have to do a lot of challenges on the NPCs, which means you're going to be in this area for a long time. So what a lot of these players are doing is just tanking a little bit of that first zone just to get, as you can see, how many players are still in this area. But ooh, Ghoul takes a shot through the window, decides, nah, that's not for me. Don't want to risk that engagement again, because still 87 players remaining. I'm not going to lie, I think this is one of the most stacked solo tournaments I've ever seen.
Certainly, these players know that there's a lot at stake. $50,000 prize pool for this tournament alone. $100,000 in Scholastic Awards given away today. Big shout out to PlayVS, is all that they do to fuel collegiate high school competitions around North America. Love to see it, but you're spot on. Absolutely a lot at stake, and these players are being absolutely cautious. Ghoul would have wanted that shot back, though. He could have gotten a nice crack on T. Jones and missed it. But all good. We'll see where he's at from a Storm Surge perspective. And Storm Surge does hit. It's going to hit hard for a lot of these players here with 86 players alive. Again, we'll just keep explaining. For any parents, anyone that's watching the team not as familiar with Fortnite, Storm Surge is a feature, a mechanic in the game where, in order to eliminate players from the lobby, to force fights to happen, there is a Storm Surge that comes down and will actually hurt the people that have not done damage in the lobby, and until you're down to top 50 and certain thresholds of players left in the lobby. That'll hit momentarily. We'll call that out when that, of course, does happen. We're jumping on board with Parsmon right now with the gold AR in hand, blue tactical shotgun, and great shields. I got to say, Parsmon also in a good spot, fairly center circle. I think Parsmon's in a fairly pretty good position here. Potentially close this one out.
he's in a really, really good spot, in particular in terms of his loot, right? You kind of mentioned the gold AR there, but one of the things he may struggle with here is, again, the cluster of players around Bony Burbs in this hilled area. And if that next zone pulls max distance, all these people are going to have to move. And you can see on that right-hand side of the screen, this is what it means, the damage threshold. He's now 105 above the damage threshold. So there's 14 players need to be eliminated before this next Storm Surge starts to go down. So it needs to get to 70 players. You can see in the top left of your screen, it says 84 right now. That needs to go down to 70. And when the damage starts ticking in, it's going to be all the players who are below. So right now, you can see Parsmon is 105 above. He is absolutely okay on Storm Surge. However, I doubt that will be enough because there are going to be players who are below who are going to keep shooting. Right now, you see Owl, a very veteran player who you would expect to be above Storm Surge in this kind of game. So he's kind of basing up, so he's in a higher layer. This gives him more angles to take shots on, gives him better opportunity to get above the Storm Surge. So if Owl does not manage to get any tags on Storm Surge here, he's going to start getting tagged. It's 25 every single tick that he gets taken by it. So this is going to be very, very detrimental for the 14 players who need to be eliminated by this. In solos, we don't normally see this level of stackness and this level of Storm Surge because most people just fight way too much. But right now, these players know what's on the line.
That's right. Parsmon, we talked about moments ago, being in a good spot. Now gets tagged up quite a bit. It looks like it's going to be Jedi John right above him. Parsmon needs to be cautious. And like you said, Owl, player who has probably some of the one of the most experienced players in FNCS or Fortnite Championship Series competitions in this lobby, currently below Storm Surge thresholds. We'll keep an eye on Owl, who attends St. Louis Community College in Merrimack. Big shout out to Owl. We're watching Parsmon right now, Miami-Dade. He finds himself in a battle against Jedi John nearby, but like Parsmon will be okay for now. Only 19 HP. Ja Crispy, though, looking for some additional Storm Surge tags just to be certain, just to be cautious. 74 above right now. Players aren't getting eliminated super fast, but Ja Crispy finds himself in a fight against Dizrod. That's not a player you want to fight against as you're desperate for Storm Surge.
No, it's certainly not. And he gets a little bit too aggressive. He saw an opportunity to get those tags. He went for it, but like we've already mentioned, there's so many players around here in this area. And as we see on that middle of your screen, Storm Surge active. This means that players who are below the threshold are currently being tagged for Storm Surge damage. And Dizrod only 33 above. You see a player getting tagged, and Dizrod manages to pick up the elimination because of this. He saw the other player was getting desperate. So now he's further above the Storm Surge threshold himself. He's managed to get himself an elimination. He's managed to get almost max materials from this. And that was Kinney who ended up going down there too. So he seems to be in a very, very nice spot. But there's still 6 people need to go down. But he does have the Stinkfish, so Ja Crispy manages to get, I think it was 10 damage. I think he got 2 ticks on him there, so that's another little bit of Storm Surge damage for him. He should be okay, this threshold, as there's 4 more people need to be eliminated. But this is a very, very tough game for these players to be playing. And even now, look at the rotate that he has to make. You can see the zone and how many players are still in front of him. Despite the fact he's got the elimination, he seems to be sitting in a good spot. It's going to be tough for him to make this next rotate to get into this 3rd zone. And then if the next zone pulls even further, this is going to be very, very tough. It'll be interesting to see how he kind of continues this rotation, now deciding to make a very smart one, kind of going underneath all these players.
That's right. It'll be very interesting to keep an eye on Dizrod here, as Storm Surge will also come into effect potentially later on. Obviously, he'll be okay for this one. His last player is going to drop here probably momentarily, but if he'll be the next threshold for Storm Surge, Dizrod will have to battle that. We'll keep an eye on Dizrod throughout, but we got to jump back to Parsmon, down to 19 HP. We talked about being in a good spot. Well, now, as no longer the case, how quick things can change in Fortnite depending on the zone. Parsmon's going to find himself an engagement, and he gets the pick on Jedi John. That is huge from a Storm Surge perspective, of course, for the 50 siphoned health that he got from that pick. Nice job right there from Parsmon. As we jump back on board with Rick's 3 eliminations, this man is on fire, playing with absolute aggression. So we talked about a lot of players playing for placement. Rick says, yeah, hold on for a second. Let me show you how it's done. 3 eliminations already. That's probably the most in the lobby.
You know, the thing is, what gets dangerous is you see players who get a high amount of eliminations. You know, we didn't see how we managed to get them, right? They could have just been opportunistic. They could have been players out in the open who needed their Storm Surge tags, and he could have just used that gold SMG that he has just to pick up some free eliminations. But at the same time, when you see players with a lot of elims, most of the time that's not what they're doing. They want to fight. You know, they're used to doing it. They're confident in their abilities to fight. So when you see players with 3 eliminations, at this kind of placement heavy format, I get a little bit worried for them because I think these guys might go over aggressive later on and make a play that doesn't benefit them in the long run.
Yeah, a tendency to fight definitely stays. It's definitely a play style thing, right? They're just like traditional sports. You have various play styles in terms of how you like to play the game. say you're in basketball, you play more like a Zion Williamson. In the post, you go for dunks. You're a Steph Curry who plays for threes. Same thing in Fortnite. You have people that play very aggressive, very Elam heavy. People that play very placement heavy. They try to just avoid fights and rotate early. And it's great to see the diversity in playstyles, but in this format, it certainly does not lend very, very well to that aggressive playstyle. We'll see if we eat our words there, as Rix is off to a good start now. Cactus Jack finds himself in an engagement. I've had a chance to cast Cactus Jack before. We'll see what they can do in this scenario. As Parsman gets another pick on T-Jones, top left of your screen. That's 2 or 3 for Parsman, who's doing really, really well. Meanwhile, Cactus Jack versus Hush on screen.
Yeah, this is a tense, slow fight. Again, like, these players are playing this like top-tier box fighters. They're being slow. They're being calculated. They're not making any mistakes, like jumping straight in the box with no advantage. Oh, as I say that, though, Cactus Jack goes for a play and ends up being eliminated because he gets overconfident trying to run out on that edit. So that is Hush that picks up the elimination. Cactus Jack now out of this first game. He's only, I think, guaranteed himself 7 or 6 placement points there as well, because placement starts to kick in when you hit that top 70, and every single threshold that comes down, you gain 1 more placement point. So some of the players in the lobby right now will be gaining placement points, but just not as much as will be once you get into that top 20 right now. So see a large cluster as well. This is what kind of happens when you have risky reels in the middle, right? There's a lot of materials in there. A lot of these players go in and they think, I'm going to get some of those, harvest them out, jump in, but then you get that problem with all of the players clustered on the south side of this next zone.
Raven Dubs going to take an L to not exceed, actually, someone else on the screen. It's going to be Jelly who gets like his second or third elimination. Nice job to Jelly. Coming on board with Chang, we talked about earlier, talked about the big brain of Chang going to Georgia Tech. We'll see if the big brain can get him out of this situation here. Some solid edits from Chang, but it looks like he's out of mats. It is looking dismal for Chang right now, down to 7 HP, and right now he's a rat trapped in a cage, not looking great. Going to pop some HP, but his inventory is not solid. It is a very, very rough situation for Chang right now with no mats to their name. Gotta think, unless Chang pull off a miracle here, his days, his minutes might be numbered.
He's also below Storm Surge, so this is just kind of the worst of all worlds right now. So he's rotating into the places that has the most players on it. Oh, but he's been spotted. He's used one of those 3 builds that he just harvested by Ondi there. Manages, luckily, to survive another minute, but I don't know how much longer he can make this up for. It is the blue pump shotgun, so that's not able to hit someone for 1 shot and eliminate them, but he does take a shot, but only hits for the 30 damage, and he tries to go for the boosh, but it does not work.
Tries to go for the what? The boosh?
He's trying to hide in the boosh. Do you not see down there? He's trying to get away. The boosh.
You know what? I love commentating with my Scottish friend Reese. It's all sorts of great pronunciations, like the boosh. I'm gonna call it a boosh from now. I'm gonna join.
There'll be plenty. What am I meant to call it?
The bush, the boosh. I'm okay with the boosh. No. We're gonna roll with the boosh instead of the bush. I'm right there alongside you. I think there's a Fortnite player named Boosh, so big shout out to Boosh if you're watching. On board now with Jock Crispy. That'll be, hopefully, like you said, Reese, that'll be the first of many pronunciation differences here. It will be a good time.
I'm sure.
Looking forward to it. On board with Jock Crispy with 2 eliminations to their name, full HP, full shields, 6 minis, a big pot, and of course 2 med kits. A good situation for Jock Crispy, and then the standard assault rifle and tactical shotgun loadout. So opting for a very heal-heavy loadout. Truculent Gamer, talked about earlier. Really great vocabulary here. I still have to look up what truculent means. If anyone knows in the chat, let us know. We'd be to figure out definition. We're on board with truculent right now. No eliminations to their name, but still was above Storm Surge. It seems to be okay. Not okay is Beansy.
Look, I'm not surprised he's above Storm Surge. Truculent means eager or quick to argue or fight, aggressively defiant. So he's going to be getting in there and going for those fights. If we see him below Storm Surge, that's uncharacteristic, I think, at this point. Ooh, as Lamb gets picked up on rotate to this 5th zone, and Jack Crispy still sitting very, very happy right now. Only 41 builds to his name, so going to have to get a little bit of a refresh at some point through that kind of first moving zone, or right now in the 5th zone. But realistically, 2 eliminations, already got some placement points. He's already made a relatively good game out of it. He just needs to make a play at this point to kind of get him further into this match.
If you could find some on the rotation here for that refresh, that'd be a solid situation. Certainly does not have enough in materials to hold high ground, despite holding a semi kind of mid-high ground right now. It's going to be Virus with ultimate high in this late game, and that's important to know, especially in this current meta. Not a whole lot of mobility or high ground retake opportunity, so hold high ground early has a pretty solid and significant advantage. That's Virus right now with the ultimate high. That could change pretty quickly though, as Exceed's right behind him. Virus is a little bit cautious, and of course in a good position at least for the moment. We'll see what will ensue here on this rotation through Jock Crispy, who we talked about earlier. Needs a refresh, could benefit from one quite significantly. Finds an opportunity against Swerve, and he wants to take it. He knows he has an advantage in HP. Swerve popping one mini, but it's not going to be enough. Jock Crispy playing with a lot of aggression, but really sacrificing a lot of mats for this fight. He's kind of going all in here.
Oh, I had this Swerve just appeared in his box there. I'm not really sure where he came from, but he's using mats, but that's the thing. He needs to kind of get an elimination at this point, or he may not even be able to make it through this first zone. He had height, but it wasn't worth it because he didn't have the materials to be able to keep himself going. So now he's kind of got himself in this sticky situation, however, where he needs to make a play here. So either he gets an elimination and makes it through this moving zone, or he manages not to. Maybe he'll find a bush at the end of the zone. I'm pretty sure there's one there as well, so he might be able just to hide in that, and just as soon as he gets into the zone. So he's kind of got stuck in the back of zone here. This is not the kind of play he was hoping to make. The storm is ticking down on him. One more shot remaining, and he picks up the elimination on XC, which gives him the siphon to keep him going, but he's got one more tick. He needs to do it again, and he is eliminated, unfortunately.
And make something out of nothing there, and you got me all types of excited with that call, but unfortunately it's not going to matter. Jock Crispy gets taken out. On board with Mandinka now on screen. Also light in the builds category and going to get taken out. Caster's Curse certainly is real in this game, as we've been watching people getting eliminated left and center. On board with Harsh right now. He's going to finally pop that med kit. Rampahita going to find himself in an engagement. Going to get taken out. Rampahita against Swim Coach Monkey, who we know has gotten a few eliminations this game. Off to a solid start. Guess who it is? It's going to be Mars with what seems like a high ground right now. Mars, one of the more experienced players in this lobby, the winner of the Play versus All competition in trios, looking to go back-to-back with the Play versus Championship here. We'll see if they can do it. If we get picture-in-picture on screen here. We love Mars so much, we're going to show Mars twice. Same with Rix. On the left side, you'll see the overhead camera. 3 players remain. Oh, this is down to kind of 1v1v1 at this time. Mars on high ground, but we know he does not have many materials at all. Hutch going for the high ground play this time, but Mars just trying to knock him out, do anything he can to not fall down to the player who's currently on low ground here. You don't want to be pinched in between the players remaining when there's only 3 left. You want to try and make them fight and then pick up that victory royale. Right now, Hush is the one in the commanding position on high ground, and Ron on low ground really struggling right now as Mars just kind of sits in the cone using those 2 floppers. Hopefully he's going to do exactly as I just said. Get behind the players and be able to pick up eliminations this way, because he only has 1 build remaining. Ooh, Hush getting tagged, being eliminated, and that's Mars who manages to pick it up. So it's a 1v1. Mars does not have any materials at this point. He gets a shot off on Hush, who may be able to actually pick up this elimination, but no, Mars goes down to the zone, and it is Retail Ron who manages to pick up the victory royale in game 1. Beyond impressive play right there from Mars, though. Kudos to Retail Ron for taking it. But I love what we saw from Mars. That was near perfection in that late game play. Recognized he had floppers. He had an opportunity to sit in zone, take some damage, but heal back up, take high ground, and then use that to get himself an elimination. Unfortunately, was a little too slow, a little too late, and ended up getting taken out. But in the end, it was Retail Ron who wins game number 1. Congratulations to Ron as we take a look at some replays here, Reese.
Yeah, we saw that. It was Cactus Jack getting picked up. He got a little bit too aggressive. Same with this play earlier, right? No shields, nothing, just ramp flipping. Potentially not a way that you want to be eliminated earlier. And this play by Jock Crispy, I think that was absolutely so clutch, but there's just almost no reason for him to still be back in that zone for that long. Like, we know that we were kind of commentating the play, saying he needed to make a play. Getting stuck in the back of the zone wasn't really the play that he needed to make, despite the fact that the kind of elimination was really cool and it was clutch. It just unfortunately was just a little bit too late, and they're just too stuck in that zone.
Right. You know what was interesting in that game number 1 is we did see a very stacked lobby early on. Like you said, one of the more stacked games you saw an early game from any solo competitions you've casted, which I know has been quite a few. But the late game wasn't necessarily as stacked as we saw. You saw a lot of players get taken out. And I think Storm 4 to Storm 5, you didn't really see that 50 threshold Storm Surge play too much of an effect. So we'll see if that becomes a trend or if that is the norm. As we're going to take a very quick break. Game 1 is in the books. It was a great one. Congratulations to Retail Ron for winning that one. We're going to jump to a very quick break. When we come back, we will have game number 2 right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to the PlayVS Spring College Championship featuring Fortnite Fallout here alongside Reese. Game 1 is in the books. And again, massive shout out to PlayVS. I'm a huge fan of PlayVS and all that they're doing. This tournament, this competition, the opportunity for collegiate players all across North America to play against one another is amazing. PlayVS, of course, fueling competitions at the high school level to collegiate level. Awesome stuff across the board. I'm a big fan of academic gameplay, that's for sure. And guess what? Standings after game number 1 are ready. Let's take a look on screen right now. And as a result, no surprise there. We got Mars leading the way with a second place finish, picking up quite a few eliminations as well. I'll put Mars in first place. Rick's right behind with a 4-elim game.
Yeah, that's surprising. You know, Retail Ron ended up coming in that first place. He saw him pick up the Victory Royale, which we know this is kind of very placement-heavy format, but he actually only got that final elimination. So he actually only got the single elimination in that game. And despite the fact, you know, Rix and Mars had plenty more. They had 5 and 4. So that's kind of put them a little bit above. So that's kind of that balance we've been seeing before. You know, getting some eliminations, move you higher up. Maybe if you get that Victory Royale, you're going to keep moving up, but I don't know. I don't know how he's actually managed to make it all the way through a heavy Storm Surge game like that with only getting the 1 elimination. He must have been very good at getting his tags.
And that actually also speaks to the format, right? And we talked about how placement heavy it is, but the fact that Ron's able to be in third place right behind Mars and Rix with 1 elimination, getting a first place finish says a lot. As we take a look at the second page here, Posek, who we've been keeping an eye out for, we know is absolutely a player that you got to watch. Of course, takes home a 1 elimination 7th place game. That puts him in 11th place. Harsh right behind in 12th. Ja Crispy, who we saw quite a bit of. We got Mandinka and Exceed and Thanks, who we saw quite a bit of it as well. They will round out our top 20 in standing. So an interesting first game. Any surprises there, or did you expect to see Mars on top?
I mean, it was one of my 3 picks to be first, so I can't be too surprised at this point. So Mars played it really well. Like I said, getting that second in game 1's great, and if he can continue that all the way through the kind of next 5 games, he's going to be up there.
Yeah, and one player that we were obviously keeping an eye out for that was also in your list of 3 players was Bisek, who got taken out early on, the controller player. Did not necessarily fare well. If you had to predict game number 2, who do you think is going to do well in game 2? Do you think Bisek's going to bounce back well?
Yes. I'll just say yes straight away. Look, he's a player he's been in all kinds of different circumstances in the game, right? He's been a player who's been in console tournaments, which are really not that stacked, some of them. Some of the solo cash cups weren't that stacked, into high-level other tournaments that have been very stacked, in particular this one. So he's a veteran in any type of gameplay, right? And whatever mistake he made in game 1, you know, we didn't necessarily see how he was eliminated or where he went down. So we don't know the issues that he's made at this point, but definitely can come back this game. But someone else I wanted to mention, right? Someone that I kind of want to keep my eye on a little bit was Ja Crispy, right? We saw him play very well. We got the 3 eliminations. We already mentioned his kind of blunder in the end there, but getting 3 eliminations just before moving zones in generally is very impressive, right? That's a guy who can get those refreshes when he needs to. He made the mistake. I'll say it again because let's be real, it's still pretty funny, right? Getting stuck in the back of the zone. He made that error. But if he kind of fixes that coming forward, I think this guy could definitely get higher up in the leaderboards and into the kind of top 5s where those big placement points end up being.
Love that call out. We'll definitely keep an eye on Ja Crispy. Another player for me is Virus QT. Virus was holding high ground, actually maintained ultimate high ground, was not able to hold on to it. We didn't see how Virus lost high ground, but a really solid game from Virus in 7th place with 2 eliminations and took home 5th place in that game. And the fact that they were able to had the wherewithal, the recognition, the game sense to hold high ground early on in the late game, obviously couldn't maintain it. That tells me that's a player that knows how to play the game mechanically well, is mechanically sound. I'm looking out for Virus in game number 2. You mentioned Ja Crispy. We talked about Bisek. Those are a couple players in particular to look out for. But for me, I think Mars is going to continue to run train. He was my prediction to win the tournament. Obviously, coming off a PlayVS championship last fall, I think Mars is going to continue to roll here. And so far, so good for Mars, a top player in his own right. We'll see if Mars will continue to roll. Any other players that you want to keep an eye out for? Any other players you think might pop off here? Any predictions in game 2?
I want to keep an eye on Retail Ron, right? I think he knows something we don't know here. Like I already mentioned, he's getting 1 elimination, which was the final one to pick up the Victory Royale. There's some good stuff he's doing with his Storm Surge strategy all the way through, and generally his ability to get refreshes. Now, usually what we would see is players carry a Harpoon if they're able to get low amount of eliminations, right? Because they can get ahead of the moving zones, look back, Harpoon down that loot if they see someone on low ground. So, you know, some of these straggler players who've kind of struggled a little bit more, they've been eliminated, lost their mats on the low ground. So you can nip that up with a Harpoon, be okay, and keep yourself moving. So he clearly is doing a strategy that anyone else really isn't at this point. He managed to pick up that Victory Royale in game 1. And this is something that we're going to look out for, is the players who are playing the format in exactly the way that it's laid out, right? Figuring out ways to continually stay as live as long as possible and kind of get away from those engagements, right? These players aren't trying to take huge amounts of fights. They're just trying to survive as long as they possibly can in these games to get as many points as possible. Only get those eliminations when they need the refreshes.
Yeah, and I'd love to get your take on that, maybe digging a little bit more there, because I think you're spot on with this format being placement heavy. Storm Surge obviously is a concern. Stacked Lobby is a concern. What's your Storm Surge strategy? Are you playing it more like Ron, where you're not taking fights, you're not taking engagements, you're just poking and getting just enough Storm Surge to make it to late game? Or are you taking 50-50s early on to try and get an elimination early off the drop? What do you think is the best strategy here, given this format?
I mean, I'm getting eliminated, right? That's what's happening, right? I ain't making it the same way as these players do, but realistically, getting ahead of zone is the best thing. So not being the one stuck in the back cluster with all these players, being able to spray at the players who are rotating forward, or if you kind of move to the dead side of the zone where there's not as many players, if you're a confident fighter, you can take a fight there because you're not going to really be third party there's not as many players around. So if you're good awareness of zone and dead side and where that is, you can definitely take a fight in this area, or you just need to make sure you're not stuck at the back of the zone.
Well said. I think the dead side strategy is certainly a great one. For anyone watching that maybe is not familiar with competitive Fortnite, dead side of the zone, what that means is based on where the circle is, there's a side of that circle that is less likely to have players coming in or rotating from, and that's where you want to take your fights. You know, maybe it's on the edge of the island, and there's less likely to have other players that spawn or that drop nearby. So those are the fights that are a little bit more safe to take, and you'll typically see players take those fights more consistently because they're not going to get third partied or have a third or fourth or fifth player interrupt or disrupt that fight. So we'll keep an eye out for that. We'll keep an eye out on some dead side fights. Some early 50-50 fights in drop spots. That's, of course, a viable opportunity to get some Storm Surge. And you do have some players, like we saw Trulescent, thank you for the definition, by the way, aggressive in nature.
I got you.
That was fantastic. We'll see if they'll play aggressive and live up to their name. We saw Rix playing incredibly aggressive with a 4-elimination game. So you will have some players that just tend to play a more aggressive play style. Storm Surge won't be as much of a concern from them. But then, of course, we have the likes of players like Retail Ron, who completely avoided any engagement until the very, very end. Got one elimination, and that was the final elimination of the lobby, but somehow was able to survive that Storm Surge. But going into Game 2, Game 3, and beyond, do you think Storm Surge will be just as much of an effect as players kind of start to get a little bit more familiarized with the lobby, with drop spots, as the lobby gets conditioned? Do you think that we're going to have Storm Surge be more and more of a factor?
It's always difficult to tell, right? Some tournaments it goes crazy in random games. Sometimes people are just really, really cautious. I think, right now people are just kind of being a little bit more cautious because it was just game one. So maybe a little bit less in the games moving on, and then towards the end, more.
I'd love to see it. Obviously, with more at stake in games 4, 5, and 6, you'll see players play more cautious, but then you also have players that play a little bit more aggressive because they're behind. Either way, gameplay is ready. Game 2 is upon us. Let's go ahead and jump right in, ladies and gentlemen. Game number 2 of the PlayVS Spring 2021 College Championship featuring Fortnite. And guess what? We got to jump on board with the man Retail Ron, living up to his name, dropping Retail Row, Retail Ron, and Retail Row. The alliteration is fantastic because he has 2 others nearby. Retail Ron trying to claim his territory.
I wonder, if he was called Steve, if he'd drop it Sweaty Sands instead, or maybe it's just purely the alliteration that's got him coming here. But I don't know why I'm surprised.
Sweaty Steve would probably be the best gamer tag in this lobby.
There's someone out there who's named Sweaty Steve as well. I'm not be surprised, but for some reason I'm surprised that he's dropping at Retail Row. I kind of thought maybe the name would be just kind of throw players off, right? Yeah, I'm landing here, and then he just goes somewhere completely different to kind of claim that drop spot as a little bait instead. But no, Retail Ron sticking up, living up to his name, landing at Retail, and interesting decides to land at kind of the black tops, which is the kind of residential side on the east here. Usually players that are kind of doing better out this drop spot will be landing on the west hand side because there's 2 bunker chests. Moving over to Posick in Lazy Lake, 4 players contesting here. Now that is a busy drop spot.
It is not a whole lot of loot to go around, and typically with 4 players up in Lazy Lake, you'll see at least 1 or 2 engagements in an early game. And right now it's Posick nearby an opponent. Not sure if he's fully aware just yet, but he'll hear them momentarily. Loot up and be in a pretty decent spot here from a loot perspective. You get that final big pot that was needed. So the big potion will be consumed momentarily and might just decide to take a fight here. We will see if that's the case, as it looks like one of those players is going to back out, reset, and it will be an interesting skirmish, interesting fight over in a very, very stacked Lazy Lake drop. Meanwhile, speaking of stacks, we got the Steamy Stacks as we're on board right now with 2 players fighting in Steamy Stacks. It's going to be Watson find themselves in engagements against my favorite. It's Virus here in game number 2 as Rapahita gets a pick on Flapjack at the top left of your screen.
Oh, your favorites taking damage back in return. You maybe cursed him without even watching his POV, but he decides to disengage from this fight. Watson down below. You know, again, these players clearly aren't one to be able to fight at all. And I mentioned the harpoon in the end of that last game. We saw Watson actually drop it for a med kit there. So potentially, I was wrong. Maybe these players aren't one to take the harpoons in late game, as we've not really seen any of them go for that so far. But Virus, your pick, as you've already mentioned, used to, well, not your pick from the start of the game, right? Not from the top of the show, he wasn't your pick.
The bandwagon. I'm going to admit that. I will.
When he was on height in 5th zone, this is the time for him to be your pick. I see how it is. I see how it is. But moving over to Goaty, over to Risky Reels. This is where our kind of last game's end game ended up being. And you know what? For these two players, it's looking awfully dicey right now.
Goaty going up against Parsmon. Saw Pars last game make it to late game, fare decently well, but it looks like Pars kind of just avoiding this fight. Not sure if Pars is aware of the HP advantage that they have over Goaty, but Goaty wants to take this fight despite being an HP disadvantage. Pars holding right hand there. Meanwhile, Hush, our top performer from last game, third place finisher, is going to get taken out. You got to be kidding me, by Skywalker. Despite being down to 5 to 10 HP, some way, somehow, Skywalker connects for one over Hush. Finally, though, Skywalker does get taken out right after by Hush. The rhyming is just too much right now for me to handle.
And that's, I mean, I'm actually kind of mind blown there, because all that needed to happen from Hush was to hit a single shot, I'm pretty sure, with any weapon to be able to pick up that elimination. And I think he was around 150 HP himself, so a huge turnaround. I think we heard that he had a tactical shotgun there, so I think that was just 2 headshots just to pick up on Hush. So unfortunately, he got a little bit too over-aggressive diving into that box. But hey, honestly, I was going to say, I don't really think it was the worst play, knowing how weak the opponent is. But moving over to Detrata, who's in an engagement right now in Weeping Woods, which is looking awfully busy.
Obviously a third party coming through from afar. This is where we mentioned, yeah, dead side, you want to take fights. Weeping Woods, very centralized. You don't necessarily want to take a fight in Weeping Woods. There's so many players that tend to rotate and cluster over towards Weeping Woods. Obviously a lot of loot, opportunity to max out your wood. So you will see a lot of clustering happen in the early game or mid game on rotations towards Weeping Woods. Players will kind of hit that as part of their rotation. Meanwhile, Sam can't snipe. No surprise, no sniper in Sam's inventory. And actually, in my professional playing career, I couldn't snipe either, Sam. So I feel you there, brother. And as we're watching Sam, currently on low ground against Swerved with an HP advantage, but a low ground slight disadvantage. We'll see if they decide to take this fight or if they'll just poke and prod here.
I think they're kind of poking and prodding, but no, maybe I'm wrong. Swerve trying to get really aggressive. He's got the wall, he's got the cone in the box as well. Sam gets damaged down to 8 HP. Beautiful edits, and obviously Swerve picks up that. Beautiful mechanical plays right there come out from Swerve. Nice edits, nice resets, really confusing the opponent, and he didn't take too much damage back in return there to manage to pick up that big elimination. So that should be his Storm Surge damage ticked. You know, you were asking, how is this game going to go for Storm Surge? And so far, it's looking equally as stacked as the previous game. Maybe just the same amount of time hasn't passed in my memory, but it seems like this is the same amount of players alive as we saw last game.
Cars pass like ships in the night. There's a little bit of a drive-by here. As Thanks decides to chop out and maybe potentially take this fight. No, back out and reset. Swerved right there, though. You said mechanical prowess, and I completely agree. That is the Fortnite equivalent, breaking someone's ankles right there for what we saw from Swerved. Completely controlling that fight and making it look easy against Sam Can't Snipe, who also apparently can't hit it. I'm just kidding. Shot to Sam. We'll see what Sam can do in game number 3. And on board of Thanks right now, who we know is in the top 20 in overall standings. Thanks decided to avoid that fight. Early rotation. Wise decision here, as still has a pretty far rotation to go. And we'll try to hopefully get there while looting up, getting to max loot. You want to make sure your max materials in the early game, so you don't have to worry about it towards the late game. A lot of these players I've noticed have done a pretty solid job of managing their materials right now. As we say that, Bisec in a pretty good spot.
You know, actually, one thing I wanted to pick up on there was we saw Thanks, right? Very polite player. And that's one of the things I noticed about him. His name is polite. It's Thanks. It almost couldn't be more polite. He drove on the right-hand side of the road perfectly. He also parked, maybe not amazingly, but almost perfectly as well on the edge of the road. So he didn't shoot his opponent either. He was playing very politely. But like you mentioned, moving over to Bisec, who currently coming out of game 1, didn't manage to get a single point. So he didn't manage to make it to top 70, so potentially went down to Storm Surge or fighting earlier on. But we already saw fights happen here in Weeping. There's a lot of players clustered in this area. He has good loot. He's got 129 builds, which is plenty to get him through. That's almost capped. The shields looking tasty as well. Maybe only 1 mini. It's not the best, but the 3 bigs are looking really nice. But I'm suspecting he may get tagged at some point trying to rotate through here because there is so many people. But I honestly think because there's so many trees, he just seems to be very okay.
Meanwhile, speaking of trees, we got Mars here. The bush being a little bit cheeky with it, trying to get some tags. Wise decision here. I like what I'm seeing from Mars. From afar, trying to get some tags, and that's the benefit of rotating early. So you can just kind of keep an eye on folks that are rotating a little bit later, get some tags, set yourself up for success. That's probably what Retail Ron did to find success last game. He also talked about Thanks. Thanks, one of 4 players today competing for the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee alongside Dizrod, T. Jones, and Hinsey. So a lot of representation from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee as a Chicagoan. I gotta say, shout out to my fellow Midwesterners. I know you don't like us Bears fans down here in Illinois, but nonetheless, University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee well represented here today.
Very well, very well. And you know what? Moving over to Poon, or Pone. It depends how you want to say this, right? There's been a large debate on the internet for a long, long time. I don't know what camp you're in, but gets a wall taken from him. He's managed to nearly get out. He's placed the ramp over, blocked the opponent. Beautiful escape here, but he's down to 30 HP. This is looking awfully dicey for him right now. He's going to try and pop a shield, but the opponent gets in and manages to pick up the elimination, going through those weak builds, and that was Verminous. A player that we've not really seen a huge amount of so far in game 1.
Yeah, but I like that aggression from Verminous. I like the way that was played. Nice pick, undoubtedly. And obviously, it's Pone. It's playoff own, so it rhymes with own.
I agree. I'm with you. I'm with you. Don't worry. I used to be the other way around, and I've changed my ways. I'm an adult now, you know?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you grew up. All right, fantastic.
I grew up, yeah.
I'm glad you did. Glad you came to the right side. As now we have on board Draven Dubs TV, currently with 11 points in this game, and a vehicle that's not necessarily in a great position. Obviously, players will recognize that and might try and get some tags cross map. But as it currently stands, Liam, aka Wheels, currently with high ground, but not necessarily in a good position. Definitely in a disadvantage as the Stinkfish came through. Wheels trying to find a way to reset this fight, trying to find something to disengage this fight. Not going to be able to, though. I don't think Chapters is going to allow it to happen. We're watching as Inigo Chapters currently playing with a lot of aggression in this 1v1, recognizes the advantage that they have, but nice shot by Wheels to try to slow down Chapters at least a little bit, at least for the time being.
Yeah, and in this area that they're in, right, if they take too much damage, there are shields they can heal themselves up with, but not if your kind of opponents are all the way around you. And Chapter's making a nice play trying to knock this big build fight out, but see, you can see exactly what I'm seeing. Right now, Liam says, you know what, I'm just getting out of here. I'm just going to leave. But it seems like potentially that actually was not what he was doing. He was just potentially trying to get a nice right-hand peek on that ramp. But Chapter's in just kind of an awkward spot. He has tons of materials to fight with. He's just on this low ground. And if I was him, I think I would probably try to be a little bit more aggressive on this fight. I don't know if he knows he has the HP advantage, but because he tagged them for so much of those stinks earlier on, you'd think that he would be aware. It's quite clear that he wants to fight this. The amount of times that he's trying to chop this down, look for angles, he could have easily disengaged here. He could have just left if that was the case, but right now they're both sticking to the fight. Maybe it's a bit of ego over this drop spot that they're looking for, but Liam now ramping back up, but deciding, no, I'm just going to box up here and just take my time.
The amount of materials that Liam has committed to this fight makes you think that the reason to maybe stay in it is even if they win this fight, even if they disengaged, you're such a bad spot from a Matt's perspective. You have to rotate fairly far. Storm Surge is a consideration, so I think see them take it. This is just an awkward fight. This is one of those fights that maybe neither player is going to win. As finally Chapters realizes that, says, I'm going to back out and reset. Takes a little bit of fall damage on the rotation through, but looks like Chapters will disengage. Wheels, of course, representing the University of Cincinnati, a Bearcat here today. Chapters on screen right now. See, representing York University, Chapters wisely decides to support this fight and live to see another day.
Yeah, good idea. And here's one of your biased favorites, right? Is it John? Potentially not a favorite because you know anything about him except the fact that his name is indeed John, like yours as well. But him getting into a little bit of an engagement right here. Still no points coming out of game 1, so he did not make it to top 70. So not sure where his drop shot is, but a nice peanut butter edit to a nice big shot on the player up above him right now. And he's going to try and continually pressure the floor down below just to make sure that opponent can't heal and he can keep applying that. But I think at this point, John probably should be aggressive on this fight. I know that there's not a huge amount of placement of elimination points, in comparison to placement, but at the same time, he's only got 57 builds. If you notice around him, what's he going to do? He's not going to harvest up with all these players here later on, so his materials are probably going to have to come from this elimination, and he tries to get into the box, but it doesn't happen. He manages to pick up big beams, and he gets eliminated by the player with the tactical shotgun at this moment. So potentially should have gone for the pump shot, but maybe it was a little bit too late. He was already spraying with that blue submachine gun.
Yeah, nice try from John. Certainly do have a little bit of bias for the name, and also Jedi in the name as well. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
awesome if you ask me.
It's a good day
But
for it, too. We're on May the 4th.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. May the 4th be with you, John. Maybe in game number 3. We'll see if that's the case. As Jedi John gets taken out, we're now on board with Lamb, and as a Greek who just got done celebrating Easter and roasting a lamb in the yard, I gotta say, I'm rooting for Lamb in this one as well. As we'll see, clearly we have great reasons, analytical reasons that we're picking these players to win these fights. Lamb is going up against Garrett in this one. We'll see if Lamb can end up on top there fairly even, as Lamb's going to get tagged up. 75 shield, 50 shield from Garrett in this fight. Garrett on their back foot.
Yeah, trying to ramp phase into the box right now. The other opponent actually behind the cone, down to Storm Surge. Oh, the shots are trading, and he manages to pick that up. Both players almost whiffed there a little bit, actually, but Cabalor also down below Storm Surge. He's actually in such a good spot in terms of the zone as well. Center of third, high ground 2, but unfortunately getting tagged for the Storm. I think at this point he has to go for shots. Out healing the zone when there's still 5 players needs to be eliminated. It's not going to work, but he gets in the box. He's going for the shots on Jones, but Jones, it makes the edit, opens up. He's on 42 HP. They're trading back and forth. Both of these players really need this damage. Cape still down below. Storm Surge trying to get in the car to phase into the box, but it does not work. One more tick and he'll be out, but he's managed to get 52 above. He's managed to be above somehow. After all of that fight, he's above with only 17 HP and no heals remaining. Now, honestly, for Cape, he has 2 uses of the harpoon. If I was him here, I'd be using that metal, getting up, and just hoping you find some loot somewhere, because that's going to be tough to get any eliminations from.
Right. Being gifted right there was Cabalor by Lots, who got taken out, which is live from a Storm Surge perspective. Meanwhile, young Robert also going to get taken out by Draven Dubs with a nice little shotgun drive-by there with the pump. A little low in inventory, and we're going to take a quick look at the map. Take a look at how many players are outside of the circle right now. It is going to be madness on this rotation. And again, I don't think we're going to see a lot of Storm Surge take into effect for the 50-player threshold here in a moment. So many of these players are going to be crossing on the rotation. Shout out to our observers who are catching all the Storm Surge fights that we saw right there, and also giving us a nice little glimpse of that map and seeing how much clustering will be taking place on the fast side. And that's the benefit of playing dead side of the circle. That's the benefit of early rotating. You avoid the nightmare that is this rotation for these players.
Yeah, and dead side for this kind of zone would probably be the very south side. But again, there's a lot of hills there, so a lot of times players cluster onto those. So there's a lot of considerations when you look at the dead side and where it's exactly going to be. But all that we know is that the most congested side of the zone is to the north, as we are with Agenda here, who manages to pick up a big shot on PG, but is looking tough. Both these players are taking Storm Surge damage, zone damage generally, and it looks like Fiji's going to go down to this. He's taking a Ram Peak, and with a 6 damage shot, Agenda manages to pick that up, but it doesn't seem like that's going to save his game. But moving over to Dizrod, our Heat 2 third place from yesterday. Very strong component coming in here, but looking just like he's struggling a little bit more in this game. He did a really good job in the first game, but right now, no shields, 3 HP remaining, getting sprayed from the lobby. He still has max metal, but he is unfortunately eliminated on that congested side of the zone.
It looked like it got taken out on that rotation as well. So 2 of our University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee players out of this one. We're now watching as Thanks gets taken out as well. That's our 3rd University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee player eliminated. On board now with Rodapa Hita, currently sitting with an interesting loadout, representing. We got, of course, pump shotgun in hand, some good heals, and a pretty solid loadout and solid situation for a late game. Poke obviously will be a little bit tough with the AR currently, but I think in a very solid situation with 2 eliminations. Won't have to worry too much about Storm Surge, and Storm Surge in general, we're just 6 away from that threshold. We're watching as Vig FN currently healing up. Speaking of the exact opposite of a loadout situation, absolute shambles for Vig right now with bandages, a green AR, and a blue pump shotgun. Not looking good for Vig, but we'll see if they can make something out of nothing. And
even worse is the rotate he has to make is somehow through all these players, but it seems like he's making a smart decision, right? I thought he was going to go all the way down south, but he's been spotted by another player, and hopefully this player does not follow him down here, because if you notice, he can probably make his way all the way in following these builds, and that's exactly what he does with Sway. A lot of these players in this situation probably just honestly shoot at Sway, but intentionally miss. This makes him build for you so you can get into that box, but it looks like Vig's actually going for the elimination. He's trying to take a fight on this rotate, which is a very difficult play to make, but he decides to now have to start building for himself. Imagine if he just shot and missed at Sway. He could have just followed his builds all the way up. But I say this as a guy who definitely misses intentionally when I do this. I'm definitely just really on it with my aim at that point. But moving over to Retail Ron, a guy who is above Storm Surge, who doesn't have any eliminations. So this is kind of the classic gameplay that we saw of him coming out of game 1, but right now his shield's not looking too tasty.
Yeah, this is what Retail Ron does, you know, early rotates in a good spot here, trying to really repeat the same recipe for success that they found last time in game number 1, and just got some cross-map tags. Will help from a storm search perspective. Retail Ron is chilling right now. Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Does find Boxo nearby. Boxo is, of course, our leader from the Heats yesterday in overall points. Boxo played incredibly well with 524 Heat points leading the way over Jelly. Izrod took home 3rd. Keep a close eye on Boxo. And guess what? Mars, our favorite, one of our favorites as well. My favorite to win the entire tournament. Still alive and well in this late game, as you'd expect. Gameplay of Mars. Purple AR in hand. Of course, also as one of the best items for late game rotations here. In the peppers will certainly help. 6 peppers will probably last until late game. Close eye on Mars.
Yeah, and he managed to pull 5th zone as well, which is fantastic. I think for him, potentially going up there would be good because there's going to be a cluster of players down below that will rotate in there. But what we're seeing right now is all the players who have a max distance rotate to make. And this is tough because a lot of the players are going to start swimming, so it makes it very, very difficult for them to build. So a lot of the players will be holding them, will manage to get a lot of damage out here. All those players on that south side are all going to struggle to rotate here. But Bizek, we see kind of taking white line down, getting tagged a little bit. We see the full overview of Harsh on high ground right now, 107 points total, so he's been playing extremely well. But one of the things that worries me about his loadout is, one, only a single big pop, so if he gets tagged a ton, he doesn't have a huge amount to heal, and he has no fast heals, and only 50 builds. So he's on high ground here. If he pulls the first moving zone, or if he doesn't, it's going to be really, really tough for him to kind of play high ground all the way through moving zones, in particular without a harpoon. So he's going to be using that mechanical bow, trying to pick up any eliminations possible, just more for the points rather than the actual loot that he's going to get from it here. But still, he's in a really, really good spot. He can definitely, with the loadout he has now, secure top maybe 15 at this point if he plays it right, but he's going to have to make a play to get a refresh out of this.
Right, we'll keep a close eye on Harsh rotation. That, you bring up a great point as well, which is situational gameplay. Based on your loadout, based on your situation, play the game a little bit differently, and I love how you spoke to that from Harsh's perspective. I'm seeing some solid edits out of Retail Ron here, who's going to get tagged up and focused quite a bit.
Oh, no.
Retail Ron, you were the chosen one, unfortunately, as you get focused by what seemed like the entire lobby. It was going to be Sap Games who ultimately got the pick. Now, back on board with Harsh. Still holding high ground. Only 50 builds, so probably won't be enough to maintain high ground, but I love that Harsh is trying to hold on to mats, trying to just play for long-range picks with the bow.
Yeah, and you can see Ondi on the other side of your high ground there. So if zone pulls over to that northwest side, he's going to have that high ground secured. And if it pulls the other way, Harsh probably doesn't really have it. But you've noticed he kind of marked over to the north. He took a look over there. He was assessing the situation. And you can see there's absolutely no one there at this point. So if that zone pulls to the north, we'll hopefully see Harsh make a very, very quick rotate. So he should hopefully just head out and drop down. But as you see, that's not what happened. And one of your favorite picks, one of the many of our favorite picks, I think half of the lobby is our pick at this point, but Virus being eliminated as well. He did extremely well in the last game, so he's gone down before moving zones here. And Mars, I think we're going to see him right now. Pop a pepper, 6 peppers, that's 6 minutes of peppers. That's plenty to get you all the way through moving zones. I just want to see how he utilizes them. Hopefully what he does is let the zone move a little bit, pop a pepper, catch up to it, shoot back, and repeat. That's the kind of classic playstyle with the peppers.
But slightly below threshold as well, so we'll hopefully be able to find some damage on the rotation. We'll see how much Storm Surge comes into effect here. Exceed, a player that made it relatively in the late game, top 20 right now in the overall leaderboards, 101 points, going to get absolutely focused and beamed by the lobby right now by those players who are high ground, Harsh probably being one of them. Be swerved in T. Jones on screen. Noms takes out Utrev. Swim Coach Monkey going to get taken out, but ultimately, finally, it's going to be Stonky Nate who gets the pick on Exceed. Back on board with Mars now, 45 above thresholds, which is barely pepper in hands. That rotation we talked about, a very, very solid spot. Great edits coming through, builds coming through from Mars on the rotation. Looking for one if they can find it, but we'll just be content here instead. Turning around, heading to swivel, looking for any potential picks for folks that are rotating late.
Yeah, extremely material efficient on that rotate from Mars, and that's what you're going to see from these top players. But still on high ground right now is Harsh, and I must say he cannot have that many materials left. If he's contained high ground all this way, he does not. He has 9 builds remaining, so he'll be able to go back because the zone starts to pull back, so he doesn't have to build at all here. If he gets challenged for it, this may be the end of him. So you can see Mars trying to get ahead using those peppers, but instantly as soon as Mars notices, he dips down because Harsh has actually spotted him there. So now down to 7 builds remaining and only 1 clip of AR2, so it's going to be really, really tough for him. He's going to have to somehow get into a fight, but hopefully he's just going to play out these. We hit a big 130 shot on the player going for high ground, going for the cone, but unfortunately loses the height right now. And right now, Harsh is going to have to make a play to try and keep the high ground from this opponent, but it doesn't seem to be working out.
no-biddles as well. You can tell wanted to go for stairs right there, and there you go. Harsh being taken out by Daddy P. Don't miss, by the easiest elim that Daddy's going to get right there. Wheel still alive and finally takes out Chapter, so it was the round 2 of that fight we saw earlier. On board with Mars, the bottom right of your screen, finds the top right. Mars, very, very damaged. The Pepper going to keep them alive for now. Needs the pick, needs to refresh so incredibly bad. That Storm, or that Siphon would have been huge for Mars right there, but not going to get it. Jelly gets taken out by Daddy P. Don't miss. He really is not missing right now. Looking great in this late game as Mars finally gets taken out by Sirius. Wheels gets eliminated as well. Sirius gets taken out by BC Waruto, popping off the top left of your screen. And here we go. It all comes down to this. We've got about 8 or 9 players left and remaining. On board with Coot and Daddy P on picture-in-picture. Daddy P with high ground. It is looking great for Daddy P right now.
Yeah, he has 16 builds remaining. He's trying to use all those to keep himself alive as long as possible. Again, like many of these other players, he's going to have to manage to pick up a refresh to actually win the game, unless he just decides, you know what, I'm going to psycho into the box, but it's a 1v1 right now. Daddy P in the commanding position on high ground. Waruto and Rocketman on low ground too as well. Fighting, spraying each other. Waruto from low ground. Rocketman in such a bad position because he is wedged in between these two teams, but Daddy P on height does not have the match, so you can see him spraying with the tactical shotgun instead. I think Daddy P right now is just playing for that second place to start with, and then he's going to just try and psycho into the box for that final elimination, but it's looking very, very tough for Waruto on low ground.
Yeah, Waruto actually finds a refresh that was huge to keep them alive. It was looking very bleak for Waruto. Finds some minis, finds some mats, and keeps themselves at least in a fighting chance for this late game. A little bit more of a refresh right there. And a difficult one, but Waruto connects. There you go. The gold pump to the face. Brilliant plays on Waruto against Rocketman. That refresh was crucial and gets some floppers as a result. This will be an interesting late game. Gold pump versus a blue tack. You got to think Waruto has a decent chance here, but Daddy Please just playing this so well with that high ground.
He's staying up. He doesn't have the materials. He's going through old builds, so it's being very, very clutch contested. And Waruto has the ability because he's managed to go through. Luckily, all of these edits have been open for him as well, which is so lucky. So he hasn't managed to take any of this white heals. But this 9th zone, this final zone is closing, but looks like they're engaging. At this point, Waruto's lost white HP. So actually, Daddy P has the advantage right now if it goes down into Storm. But Waruto pushing up, managed to get a bit of piece control on the wall, but eventually is eliminated. And your victory royale for game number 2 will go to Daddy P. Don't miss. I only saw him hit a few shots. He did actually miss a few, but a big victory royale for him, and this is definitely going to shake up the leaderboards for him.
I don't know what you're talking about. Daddy P doesn't miss. We just clearly just saw right there. Great play from Daddy P right there. And I love the way Daddy P played that textbook. Brilliant. Obviously recognized they had the advantage with high ground. A little bit of ring around the rosy to close that one out and take home the victory. And you'll see it in the replay here as well. Daddy P will win game number 2 after Retail Ron wins game number 1. And in the top 5 right there, top 6, we saw a bunch of player names that I don't believe were in the top 10 or top 20 of the standings. So they'll shake things up quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely a huge change around for a lot of these players. And Rito Ron, our winner of game 1, unfortunately being eliminated because that max distance 5th zone, and he didn't plan it that well enough. And that final 1v1 we saw between Waruto and Daddy P, both of these players will have gained a ton of points when we see the leaderboard coming back. So there's bound to be shakeups there too. Massive stuff right there that we just saw on screen, and quite the shakeup in the standings as well. This is your $50,000 Play vs. Spring 2021 Championship featuring Fortnite. I'm excited to see the standings and more when we come back right after this.
Welcome back, everybody, to the PlayVS Spring 21 Collegiate Championship featuring Fortnite. Fall here alongside Reese of Reese. We've wrapped up 2 games so far, and that leads us almost the halfway point heading into game number 3. Reese, what stood out to you the most?
Mars. That's it. He played amazing in game 1. We saw him all the way to game 2 as well. And I'm sure that the leaderboards will reflect that as well. And yes, my psychic abilities are indeed correct. He's had an average placement of 7 across those 2 games. So really, really impressive. Up with 176 points. But Ramp in second with 172 in. We've seen him a couple times on the leaderboards and in the games right now. But I didn't necessarily see a huge pop-off from him in particular to see exactly where he came in that last game, but I think just generally managing to pick up some good points all the way through. Really, really good for him.
Yeah, high elim games actually, as well as averaging 6.5 elims per game. Rapid Heath has been playing incredibly aggressive. We've seen them in the elimination feed. Newedge in third. We didn't necessarily expect that. Newedge obviously popped out of nowhere. And there you go. Daddy P Don't Miss, our winner of game number 2. In fourth right after, Retail Ron quite significantly drops all the way down to 10th place on this screen. A couple other names you'll see is Rix, Harsh, and a few others in the top 10 that we've seen perform incredibly well, very consistent. On the second page, we got Swim Coach Monkey, who's been playing very, very well, consistent games. A lot of aggression coming through, a lot of high elim games. You got Virus, who drops down to the second page on the leaderboards. Jelly, Exceed, Swerved, and a few others that we've caught the action of. Anyone else that stands out to you here, Reese?
I mean, mainly Virus, right? Because he was one of your many favorite picks, along with one of my many favorites too. And he did end up coming like 5th with 2 eliminations in the first game, but then unfortunately was eliminated basically in that first moving zone into that last game. So clearly he has the potential. We saw that in game 1. There are a lot of players here that do, but that must be tough for him, right? Because he clearly had a little bit more of a difficult mid game. Going into end game, he wasn't as set up properly and was basically just eliminated as soon as zone started moving. So if he's hopefully able to fix those issues coming into the next 4 games, he's going to be absolutely chilling.
Yeah, well said. A couple other players that stood out to me in that last game was really the aggression of Rix, both game 1s and game 2. We saw just consistently aggressive gameplay, which we said maybe scares us, makes us a little bit nervous given this format. It's really, really important to play for placement. Those aggressive tendencies might actually cost you more than they help you. You might lose a fight, whether it's a 50-50 or regardless of the situation. You might not make it to that late game, might actually end up hurting you, but Rix has been making it work so far. I've also liked what I've seen out of Harsh. A few highly limb games. Harsh actually got 2nd place in the PlayVS Trios competition last fall, and I'm excited to see if Harsh can this time take home a 1st place finish. We saw Harsh with high ground and not the best materials and ultimately get kind of caught in a bad spot. In those scenarios, you don't want to necessarily continue to try to force high ground if you don't have the mats. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, as soon as someone starts to build up for it, most of the time you're going to take a shot, and if they place a wall or a ramp in front of you, you dip, you're out of there. You don't want to be in that kind of awkward situation where you're sitting there going, right, oh, may I try and build, may I chop it out? It's like as soon as someone goes for it, you just don't commit, you drop down, you play your game. You're much more likely to be able to pick up elimination on low ground because there'll be more players with lower materials. If someone's going for high ground, they probably have good materials.
Much like my dating life, avoid awkward situations at all costs. That I completely agree. That's actually a good theme, though. In Fortnite is these situations, these positions where you're like, do I chop? Do I play aggressive? Do I try to build and take high ground? If you don't necessarily know what to do, especially in late game, the wise decision is to just reset to make it towards that late game, especially in a placement-heavy format like we've seen today. So I will say as we kick off here in this next one, we've been showing a lot of Lazy Lake. A lot of our winners are coming from Lazy Lake. We'll jump aboard with Daddy P Don't Miss here in the Lazy Lake, as looks like a couple players have opted to not drop Lazy Lake, much like we saw previously.
Well, if you're getting bullied off your drop spot, I would also leave. If right now there was 2 other players, one of them in that last game, I say may have been a character that spawned here as well. I may have said that. So at least one person has not landed here this game, because let's be real, if your last game's winners land in here, and if you're not doing so great coming out of this drop spot, you got to have a backup. There's plenty of drop spots on the map. Like right now, realistically, you need roughly around 6 to 8 chests in your looting path, right? Not picking up and opening them, just potential ones, and hopefully some other stuff. So landing in Lazy Lake, you can get that, but realistically, you can get that anywhere else. And our most consistent player so far, Mars, is opting to drop on the east side of Misty Meadows, and that's a ton of loot. I think there's 11 chests in this total, so I already said that's above the 6 to 8 recommended that I already have. There's also peppers. So we saw last game he had 6 peppers, and this is where he's getting them from. I was wondering maybe he was dropping Catty Corner to get that many, but no, it's Misty Meadows. And if he can keep this whole side to himself, he doesn't have to engage in a fight. He can just basically get every single early game really free and consistently, and then move from there on out.
there's any players that can kind of condition the lobby or claim a drop spot in this collegiate lobby and championship, it is Mars. You know, Mars has consistently played in these play versus competitions. Everyone knows what Mars is capable of. The winner of yesterday in Heats, Mars was able to kind of condition and say, this is mine. And guess what? As a result, well, he gets the fruit of that labor, as he'll have the east side of Misty Meadows to themselves, which is a significant opportunity for loot in a really good position. So you wonder why Mars is finding success. Well, that's why. Meanwhile, Truculent Gamer on screen right now find themselves in the 1v1 against Wheels. This is a big 1v1. We've seen Wheels make it consistently to late game. We've seen Truculent Gamer in game number 1 make it to late game, but didn't see a whole lot of them in game number 2. We'll see what happens here in game number 3, as it looks like they're deciding to take this fight.
Yeah, looking like they're deciding to gauge in. You know, this is Slurpy Swamp. This is a difficult spot to be in here, right? Again, many people contesting through, many people rotating afterwards, but it seems like he's one to disengage. You know, we've already mentioned what Truculent means, how aggressive that he will be in these games, but he's deciding to play against that, right? Deciding not to do that, disengaging, and moving over to someone who's not disengaging right now is Jaith in Pleasant Park, who has that purple pump and has the ability to pick up these eliminations relatively easy. As he hits the shot, gets a beautiful cone in. It's 32 white. The player's running up to the stairs, trying to go for a peanut butter edit. This is some actually great mechanical plays from both players here. He manages to get the cone in, and then Jaith picks up the elimination.
You have it from Jaith with only 2 shots left in the shotgun as well, and they connect. Very, very aggressive. Jumps in the box of Draven. Draven with some solid edits, doing what they can, but obviously not a good situation for them. Meanwhile, on board with Virus, you folks over here at Steamy Stacks, it has been absolutely stacked in this drop spot, and as a result of that, might be a little bit tough for players like Virus to consistently make it to late game, because you're not always going to get out of Steamy Stacks for free. We'll see what happens in top left in the limb feed, as we'll keep a close eye on it. Meanwhile, Swerved will bounce and finds himself in a 1v1 over towards the Weeping Woods. Swerved has been one of our players that have been playing very, very aggressive throughout this entire game, confident in their gameplay. I've loved what I've seen out of Swerved here. Looks like he could walk away with another elimination here. Yes, they will. Nice shot to Swerved.
Yeah, great opportunity, because we saw him, like you said, game 1 being very, very aggressive right here. You know, this is a beautiful way to start fights, just by crouching, just kind of making your way in, getting that big tag shot off. Like, I think he hit 79 with the pump there. I could be mistaken. My memory is not the best, but he gets the advantage going into that fight straight away. Looks good, and then she goes to aggress, right? He doesn't just jump in a box, be super aggressive without it. But moving over to Owl, someone who is seeming to be jumping in the box, which is our very polite player of Thanks right now, not playing so polite.
You know, maybe they're giving Vegas thanks because they're thanking them for the elim, which is actually kind of rude to do. Nonetheless, thanks in a 1v1 against Owl here. Owl going to drop right into the Dirty Docks water. And this is, I believe, the 2 players that dropped Dirty Docks. So Thanks playing with aggression, trying to go for Owl. And there you have it with the right-hand advantage. Owl getting taken out. One of the big names in this competition so far. Not off to a great start, as Thanks from University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee get the elimination.
How about you saying thank you for the 33 chests that are in Dirty Docks that are now all mine to myself. So if he doesn't leave with some good loot, and if he isn't stacked later on, then I'd be very, very, very surprised. But moving over to Ski Season right now, who's having a little bit of a difficult fight in Colossal Crops. Seems to be a bit of a cluster of players here again. And, you know, yet again, 3 games in a row. These games are incredibly stacked in the early game with 93 players around. But, oh, the player opens the edit and he gets 1 pumped in the face. And that will be the end of game 3 for Ski Season. He's skied on out of this match.
Yeah, you know what? A lot of players put season at the end of their gamer tags, but Ski Season actually name themselves off after something that is real. You know, Ski Season just ended in the tail end here. And of course, they're also from the University of Waterloo in Canada. So very, very living up to their name, living up to their geography, absolutely. But unfortunately getting taken out here, as we're now on board with Green Drakey sitting within a bush outside of, it looks like there's a few players in the vicinity and nearby, 5 players in total, trying to get some long-range Storm Surge tags. Not going to connect necessarily just yet, but the 1 elimination for Green Drakey should put them in a good spot for Storm Surge. They'll probably be able to reset. And now we're going to jump back on board with Daddy P Don't Miss, who left Lazy Lake untouched. Pretty early rotation from Daddy P, which you'd like to see, and we'll see if they'll get even more center zone, as they don't have a lot of players nearby in a pretty good spot. I like what I'm seeing right now out of Daddy P.
Yeah, what we really want to see is 1 minute before this next zone closes, so in 60 seconds from now, roughly, players are already set up in a good spot in zone. That's kind of the ideal situation for these to be, and that's exactly what Daddy P was doing, and no surprise, he won the last game. He's already looking completely stacked with cap materials, and moving over to Medinka, kind of doing exactly the same thing. Really good materials, looking out to harvest the brick there. Same with Mars, as we're seeing here too, already in roughly a spot to get his Storm Surge tags. Maybe not the best spot on the map, but he's already out of his drop spot, looking to rotate. So maybe a little bit later than the others. Maybe if in 1 minute's time he's still going to be on the edge, which might be a little bit too late, as we see Nuage up there. Hopefully not going to walk into him, get into any engagements. We know Mars is a smart player, right? He's not going to want to take these engagements. He's not going to want to take these fights early on. He's going to want to rotate around, and that's exactly as he's doing, just trying to completely avoid everyone in the vicinity.
Yeah, looks like Mars had awareness of Nuage, but not the other way around. So Mars wisely is just going to keep a close eye on Nuage, make sure that they don't get their head in a swivel and spot him out. But we'll be able to rotate, we'll be able to get in zone fairly easy. And now we're back on board with Pwn. We are on board with Saw, unfortunately got taken out last game. Long range picks against Chang. I think it was Pwn versus Chang in the 1-versus-1 last game, so a little bit of a repeat there.
It was a long one.
Now, Verminus, we saw get an Elan last game as well, gets the first tag, and now going to play with aggression, has the Stinkfish as well to help. But not going to connect a whole lot with that Stinkfish. We'll force Pwn out of the box here, and we'll try and take the edit actually, but gets coned accidentally, falls into the cone of Pwn, and still finds himself in the advantage and in the advantageous situation. Kind of going all in with this fight. They use their last Stinkfish, and now Verminus doing a very, very good job controlling this fight. You're kind of all inning. You need to finish here.
Yeah, and this is kind of his own cone he put himself in. That kind of actually ruined his own fight, but he seems to got another wall of piece control. It was his own cone, and he had managed to edit out, but it seemed a little bit too late, so that kind of scuffed him up in that fight, but he's playing very aggressive. Oh, but he gets the pump shot, managed to actually pick up the elimination using that primal shotgun, and he's been rewarded as well with the gold assault rifle, which comes out of the bunker chest down in this area. So that was definitely worth taking that elimination. We'll see how many shields he has moving forward from this, so that might be the difficult spot. And just like game one, this is very, very similar first zone, where Slurpee was just kind of on the edge, where we see a ton of players around here. And I didn't see any usages of the Slurp cannon in that first game, but maybe some of these players around here will still have that in their loadout now. But Exceed doing a really good job of just being sneaky. He knows there's a player in that box right there. He knows it's Lamb, but Lamb does not know it's him. And he goes to the shots, but only gets a 31 tag. And I wouldn't want to see him engage in this anymore. I don't think that's the play. And I think Exceed knows exactly what he's doing. That's why he has 103 points right now. He knows exactly what to do. He knows not to take this fight. He got 31 Storm Surge. It's not amazing. It's not the best. It could have been better. But he said, you know what? I'm just going to whip out of here.
And got some additional Storm Surge to follow. I wonder if these players are aware of Verminus actually in the storm right behind them. I don't think they are. Verminus wisely taking a very long angle to rotate. Kind of went all in on that fight. Got the gold AR as a result, but puts himself in a really bad position because it looks like it's a pretty far rotation to the next circle as well in a minute. We'll see if Verminus will even make it at this point. So many players nearby. Just buying themselves some time as Verminus, as these players Exceed, Apolor, and others are just going to rotate through, and it looks like they'll just be parallel rotating alongside one another. Not fighting, no engagements here, but as I say that, quite a few players above them to the north. They got to be a little careful here.
Yeah, and again, this is just exactly what we've been talking about. So many players clustered in Slurpee, and you'd hope that some of these players who keep ending up here aren't going to keep ending up here anymore. And what is this player doing? I'm not entirely sure. No, that Verminus is on the south side of the zone.
Yeah, you're right.
This is Quinsulin. I am not entirely sure what this player was doing. He seemed to have some sort of fishing Storm Surge strategy potentially going on for the heal-off game, but I'm not sure that's going to work too much in this solos meta. We've seen a lot of that in trios so far this kind of year. In particular, this weekend, we saw some fantastic heal games in EU, but I don't think that's going to work in solos as much. But hey, he could definitely prove me wrong. So Mars, again, smart player, disengaging from the fight. He got tagged up, doesn't want to engage, and this time, he does not have the peppers in his inventory. He's got opted for the harpoon. So, we mentioned 6 last time. Game 1, I was talking about how these players were taking harpoon. And, well, I said they should have, and no one actually ended up doing. But let's take note, players. One of our top teams, I think the guy on the top of the leaderboard right now is either taking peppers or the harpoon. So, everyone else in the lobby should also be making that exact same thought process.
Reese knows. Reese, my friends.
Sometimes.
Only every once in a while. Don't actually, watch him play and do what he does in game.
No, don't do that.
What he says.
No.
Listen to his VOD reviews, my man Reese.
Yeah. It's like do as I say, not as I do kind of situation.
Yeah, exactly. I will say I'm a big fan of watching your stuff, Timmy's stuff. You guys are very, very similar in terms of your analysis of the game. It's always fun to watch. As Truculent Gamer get the pick on Sam. Can't snipe. Sam's not having a great day here. They get taken out 2 games in a row. Rix at the top left of your screen gets taken out by Heights. That's a top 7 player in the standings. Be eliminated from this one. So there you go. That aggression not necessarily paying off. And speaking of aggression, Rapahita, our most aggressive player in this lobby, averaging 6.5 elims per game, but currently below Storm Surge. Will have to play aggressive. And look how stacked of a lobby this is. 85 players to get down to that 70-player Storm Surge threshold. It'll be a crazy next 2 minutes or so.
Yeah, and we know Ramp. We know his ability to get eliminations. Like, as you've already mentioned, 6.5 average. The next highest is 4. So he's really popping off right now. So I don't expect him to struggle with this at all. He's managed to get a tag and he's 6 above. But again, with 14 players to be eliminated, he's probably going to need 2 more tags. So roughly around 60 more damage to be able to actually be okay. It really depends for solos, because solos can be very, very awkward. If you're in a trios game mode right now and you saw you're only 6 above, you'd probably need something like 100 to 200 damage at this point. But with solos, it can be very, very different. So he's now only 1 above, because some other players in the lobby are getting damage here. 2 above, somehow moving up by a single damage point above. That means 1 player was eliminated. So Cranium Flow, he's going to actually end up making this very, very aggressive play to jump in as he's getting third party here. But it seems to not be his cone, so he can't end up jumping out of the box. But again, look, it's almost a panic at this state with Ramp. He knows he needs to make a play, because in 1 minute 17, Storm Surge is about to activate. I'm wrong, sorry, it activates right now. So he's going to start getting ticked 4 damage. That's the first tick coming out. So that's 25 HP off of him. And he's going to play aggressive. We're not sure if Cranium in this box actually is above the Storm Surge threshold, but by the way he's playing, it seems like it is. Now, he's going to get desperate to jump into the box, and players are noticing that. But he hits a big max damage shot and picks up the elimination. A 189 max damage with that purple shot now puts him 219 above the Storm Surge. No wonder he has 6.5 eliminations average with aim like that.
Unbelievable play from Ramp right there. Desperately needed it, got it, connected. Not the same outcome for Wheels, though, as Monkey is going to actually get taken out, and it looks like right after Wheels gets taken out by It's Just Hector, down board of Nuage right now. 85 above the Storm Surge threshold should be more than okay. Swifty going to also get taken out by Storm Surge. It continues to tick, and this is what happens in these stacked games here. Storm Surge will be going away here as 2 more players will be getting eliminated momentarily. See, Watson gets taken out by Biorich at the top of your screen. Biorich, one of our top players in the heats. Also, kind of jump back on board and show some love to Daddy P. Don't miss, and I think that's why Daddy got that. I think Daddy got that Elim going for the double, and they connect right-hand advantage, and in a pretty good spot here. Their opponent's just going to back out with their tail between their legs. Daddy P certainly is not missing, though. I am loving what I am seeing from our Game 2 champ.
I mean, you know what? If you're going to put it in your name, you better live up to it. And that is exactly what he's living up to. You know, maybe I gave him the smoke a little bit too early in game 2. I said he'd missed a couple shots, but he doesn't seem to be missing here as he picks up that next elimination on Sabotager. This other player that was on here seemed to be a little bit weaker, but manages to get the heals off, and Daddy P doesn't miss. He also doesn't make bad rotates. He decides to disengage and head on out.
More than okay from a Storm Surge perspective. Daddy P at this point just wants to make it to late game. No reason to play overly aggressive. Placement is everything in this format. You got 2 great picks, very fortunate picks. Honestly, we're kind of gifted one or 2 of them.
Very.
Yeah, Daddy P finds himself in a very good spot, but materials not great. Had to use a lot on that rotate. So in a good spot to be able to just remat back up. And I'm liking what I'm seeing from Daddy P. The question is, where is the circle going to end here, and what type of rotation will Daddy P have to make? Can stay put here. That's a very, very good position for this late game. You also just saw that over your screen there. Mars still alive. Posic still alive. Harsh, our second place runner-up from the last PlayVS championship, still alive. You see Swerved. You see Thanks. A lot of players that we've been watching perform very, very well in the PlayVS competitions are still alive and well in this one.
Look, the way the game RNG works sometimes is this next zone may just randomly pull onto Spire, right? I kind of want that to happen, because the Spire zones are absolutely chaotic, because everyone kind of clusters and tries to build up to the top, and it just becomes absolute chaos. And actually, as you see the zone is pulled in the bottom right, it has gone over the Spire.
Oh,
so
gosh.
Everyone is currently on the left-hand side of the zone on this west side. As you can see in the map, this is a huge cluster of players right now. A lot of these people not been watching the Dead Side Rotates video I did at all. They're going to potentially need to go on the east side. And I honestly, you know, we've been watching a lot of early Storm Surge, right? We said it, and then it kind of knocked off a little bit. There wasn't too much Storm Surge after, and I think this may be why. These huge amount of clusters on the edge of zone, not on the dead side with so many players in this area. Maybe because, honestly, they were struggling with the earlier Storm Surge as well, so they've ended up just forced here because they were kind of clustered. But now you got to imagine, all these players have to make a rotate. Someone's got to go first, they're going to build, someone's going to follow them, they're going to shoot them in the back, and it's going to be a repeating cycle with all of the 15 if players we have here all struggling to make this rotate.
Any other reasons you think the clustering is happening? I mean, we've seen a couple games in a row, but the clustering, this is a pretty central circle. You're not going to see a whole lot of dead side in this circle. So why else do you think that we're seeing so much clustering here in this 4th to 5th circle?
Well, it's a central circle. However, the previous one was more southwest. So you got to imagine where all the players go roughly to the center of that circle. If it then pulls directly to one side of that next zone, despite the fact it's near the center of the map, a lot of those players would have still already have rotated further. So they have to kind of rotate back up to that other side of the zone. So, you know, if it's just in the center of the map, there can still be some dead side areas where players end up rotating through too. But currently our elimination leader, Ramsey, who is currently in second place, leads with eliminations with 13 at the end of game 2. That's 6.5 average. He had a game with 6 and a game with 7 eliminations. So in game, he is absolutely fragging out right now.
So if Rapahita can do it, Retail Ron, our winner from game number 1, gets taken out, and you wonder, was that first game just kind of gifted? Was it a good situation for them? Meanwhile, Harsh gets taken out on screen as well. 7 takes out Oturev. We see Mars right now, still with the harpoon in hand. 6 minis, a decent loadout. 96 above the threshold will be more than okay. Mars in a pretty decent spot here towards the late game. We'll see if they can perform and continue, as Mars has probably been the most consistent player in terms of placement. Rapahita obviously most eliminations, but I think Mars is up there in placement consistency. Doc Crispy, player that plays top 3 or top 5, I believe, in our Play vs. Championship in the fall. Still alive as well. One of the players we also said to keep an eye out for. They are alive and well in this game.
Yeah, a ton of players doing really, really well from across the games, right? And we'll see the leaderboards after this game really probably start to solidify a little bit, right? Halfway through the tournaments, we've seen crazier changes, but a lot of the times those top players will stay in the top 5 to the top 10 anyway. But we're very, very interested to see what those kind of look like. And you know what? Zone has pulled down to the south, very, very close to the Spire. Now, I don't know if the Spire is in the next zone. I actually don't think it is. I think it's just out. But if there's a player sitting on top of that Spire, they have almost guaranteed high ground coming into this next zone, which is going to be absolutely critical. But a lot of these players are still rotating in, and you're going to see a lot of players in this north-hand side really, really struggle to get in, as we see Goaty right here, just going to try and get any shots he can on rotate with that mechanical bow. Headshot is 212 damage, so he can end any one of these players' games if he connects with it right now.
Tough to do, as we've seen. He shot about 10 shots, hasn't connected for one just yet. No AR ammo for Goaty, though, so it's not a great situation. Bizek, for players we said you certainly have to keep an eye out for. Controller player, dominated FNCS on console, now playing controller on PC. We'll see what Bizek can do. College student competing today from Florida Southwestern State College, representing Florida Southeast here. Now we're back on board with Mars, who, of course, heavy favorite. We got to keep a very, very close eye on. University of Maryland, Big Ten, being represented today, one of our only schools in the Big Ten. To see what Mars can do, representing UMD. And I think you at University of Maryland might be one of the 70 schools in North America that offer scholarships to play Fortnite, which is insane to think about. Schools as small as Illinois Wesleyan, schools that are much, much bigger, offering scholarships for students to play Fortnite competitively. It is amazing to see. So a big shout out to Collegiate Esports. I'm a big, big fan. And I will say, it's been fun to watch collegiate esports progress, grow, high school esports becoming a thing. When I was a pro gamer in high school, I actually didn't tell anyone about being a pro gamer, because back then it wasn't nearly as big as it was now. It was kind of an embarrassing thing back then. Now it is, of course, a mainstream thing. You can get a varsity jacket for playing esports, which is great. And Rapahita trying to earn their letters right now is another elimination going to connect, and that's over Mars. That is huge. 4 elims for Rapahita. And guess what? There's still so many players left in this lobby. It's insane what Rapahita is doing.
This was the second time in a row Rapahita has been in a really, really scuffed position. and has hit a max damage shot and then followed up with the elimination there. And that was, like you said, a critical elimination because that was on Mars, our current leader. So definitely if he ends up being out of this game, this is an opportunity for other players to catch up. And Juke with a 200 IQ rotate using the zipline to get himself a little bit ahead. He was looking for those mats, but unfortunately didn't end up. He's kind of getting stuck at the back of the zone here. Only 5 builds to his name. He does have the legendary tack right now, the purple tack actually, and he has the ability to get through, but again, he's clustering. It's going to be difficult as New Age gets eliminated at the back of the zone here.
Cut. Nate's taken out. Jake is vibing. Shot from Nate. Virus still alive. We still have Ramp alive, I believe. Chasbo and Cut fight for high ground, but no, it's going to be Daddy P don't miss, but I believe he's taking high ground. Dr. Duke going to get one that is big over Crimso, as Duke needed the Siphon. Going to get it some way, somehow. Duke is still alive. Double harpoon gun in inventory, but guess what? It is Daddy P don't miss with a decent amount of mats and high ground going for the back-to-back game. With Mars out, this should put Daddy P in first place, potentially, if he can win the game. We'll see if that's the case here. And it's a good situation to not miss and be on high ground, because guess what? You'll get quite a few eliminations. There's going to be one on Chaz.
And every single time he stays alive, every single time one player is eliminated, he gets additional 2 points. So even though he's only got those 34 builds left, every single time he stays alive, getting more and more placement points, which means he's getting further and further ahead of Mars, who definitely, I think, must be behind right now. So Daddy P must be in that first place position right now, and he just has to continue. And he gets those massive beams off on Goatee, the double dink headshot. He is not missing indeed on Swayward as well, who is eventually picked up. But Rampagita still in this game as well.
Brilliant tracking from Daddy P, lasering everyone in this lobby, making it so hard for everyone but himself. And at this point, Goatee actually finds a kill on Rapahita, and Goatee got taken out, actually damaged quite a bit from Daddy P earlier. Daddy P going for the final blow on Goatee, not able to get it just yet, but we got Posick. We got Daddy P and Goatee alive in this one. 3 players remain.
3 players remain. Is Daddy P on high ground right now? Looking down, Posick down below, a very veteran of the sport. It is now a 1v1. Both players have mats. Both players trade damage. Are almost equal HP right now. Healing up. Trying to do anything he can. Potentially goes for the cone. But now, Posick low ground out of materials. Daddy P on high ground with plenty of builds left and a flopper too. So he has everything to play for here. He has the ability. Posick trying to just harvest anything that he can get. And this is the end of his heals in terms of big pot. So he's at 150 HP. He's not going to be able to get any more. Ooh, but Posick hits the beautiful shots onto the high ground player as well. This is a tense end game as it goes through the spire. Posick be able to harvest some materials, just find, I think, an extra 3 brick on the floor there, which I don't think was enough to get him up to a single build. However, it may be more if he manages to harvest some of his building out, but he doesn't end up choosing so. Looking to go for a shot onto Daddy P, who is on high ground now. 1v1 situation, no build, still remaining. 3 left on Daddy P, but Daddy P missed. He didn't live up to the name, and Posick hit every single shot. 100 with the pump, and your winner of game 3 is Posick.
Tragic right there for Daddy P. Great job from Posick on low ground. Daddy P had a flopper, and I think accidentally used the flopper thinking it was a shield, as he had 80 or 90 HP, popped the flopper, ended up actually wasting it. I thought Daddy P was going to play that game similar to what we saw in game 2, which is really just outmaneuvering, outlasting, out-surviving with a flopper in inventory, with high ground, with way more mats. You thought they'd be in a good position to close that one out, but obviously they didn't know what we knew in terms of Posick being in slight shambles with inventory, at least in terms of materials there.
Yeah, and this is the big pump shots from Ramp coming out. One of the 2 max damage shots that we saw, and this was the second one as well. Huge clubs coming out of Rampagita as well, and this was Daddy P's clinical play. He took high ground, the huge beams coming out. He managed just to stay up for the entire of moving zone, right? He took it halfway through the first moving, managed to maintain this all the way around. Sure, maybe potentially a little bit of a choke in the end game. He still had more heals, more shields, and basically everything else, right? He had all of the materials too. He had every advantage, high ground, but unfortunately that's a little bit of a choke. But let's not say anything about that negatively, because he came second still. He is first in the previous game and then second here, so he must be up there at the top of the leaderboards.
Yeah, Daddy P's going to be in a great spot. That was a big game for Posick as well, because I don't know if Posick was in the top 10, so I'm excited to see where Posick lands, if Daddy P will overtake Mars. We'll find out about that and more, because we're going to jump to a very quick break. When we come back, standings in game number 4 right after this. Three games done and dusted, three more to go at the PlayVS Spring 21 College Championship featuring Fortnite. I am Fallout, joined alongside the man himself, Reese, as we've enjoyed some great Fortnite so far. Collegiate Fortnite, watching some of the best collegiate players in North America go head-to-head. Reese, how are you enjoying the action so far?
The action's been amazing. Like, first three games have been so high quality, right? With so much Storm Surge, super stacked games, and like anything you want out of a tournament, this is what you want, right? You want games that are super high quality, and the players who are performing the best in these high quality games currently are Rampagita, 282 points in first place right now. Mainly because of this huge amount of eliminations he's been able to get. Danny P don't miss in second after that first, and then the second in game 2 and 3. Very closely behind him, but Coop, Posick, and Mars very much on their tail as well. You know, it may seem like there's a big differential kind of between that first down to fifth, but 80 points can easily be recovered in a single game, and we still have 3 more to come.
Yeah, that's right. We've seen that, standings change quite a bit round over round, game over game. So certainly an opportunity for players at the bottom of this list, Boruto, Sirius, Dr. Duke, to work their way up the standings. And at the same time, a lot of these top players, unless they play a little more consistent. Rampagita, yes, playing very well with high elims, and that's why they're in first place. But average placement has been 12th place. I'm surprised the Rampagita has been able to take that first place spot. I want to see continued consistency come through here as we take a look at our second page here. 29 served in 11th place. Goaty, Bizek, Harsh. Bizek working their way up the standings. Virus still lingering within the top 15, but top 20 is not a whole lot. You really want to place in that top 5 to take home that $1,000 or more prize of the $50,000 prize pool here for NA East. It's a significant prize pool in Scholastic funds. Awesome stuff to see PlayVS supporting the collegiate scene. Of course, that's what they do best. High school, collegiate, doesn't matter. PlayVS is the platform that provides it all, and I'm a big fan of what they've done to really transform the high school collegiate scene in North America. I wish that opportunity existed when I was in high school, so kudos and big shout out to PlayVS for hosting some of the best Fortnite competitions.
Yeah, and you know what? When I was in high school, man, I was not good enough to get any of these scholarships. So good for all of these guys for getting the Scholastic Awards, right? To be able to perform at this high level. We've seen a lot of these players in other tournaments as well, right? In the FNCS and some other solo cash cups. Anything that's actually in-game, we've seen these guys in the leaderboards over and over. And this just shows the true testament just to how truly good some of these players really are. They are performing right here. You know, these, like I've already mentioned many times, these are extremely high quality games. And these performances are very outstanding and top of the line from the kind of players that we were expecting here.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're a high school player watching right now, it's insane to think that you can get a scholarship to go to college, get college paid for playing Fortnite. You love to see that reality that exists here. 2021 is a great time to be alive as a gamer, as a pro gamer, especially in competitive Fortnite. So make sure you keep an eye on the 70+ schools in North America that offer scholarships for Fortnite. And hopefully one day we'll see you compete in these PlayVS collegiate events as well. As, gaming full-time, streaming full-time, competitive Fortnite, certainly a viable career path. But I will always say, me personally, I actually went to college, got my degree. Grateful that I did, as of course it's really important to have that backup plan, and you get to still play Fortnite in college and pursue it as far as you can, as much as you can for those 4 years. So awesome to see a lot of these players doing exactly that, as we have players like Owl. We have so many players that compete in FNCS at a top level while also getting their degree. Kudos to them for managing both. Yes, but guess what? Gameplay is just about ready. Game number 4. We're over the halfway point, and you said it at the top of the show. What you're looking forward to most, that game 5, that game 6, where things get absolutely insane. We're nearing towards the end of this series, and honestly, at this point, I can't predict who's going to win. It really is anyone's game, because every one of these players are popping off game over game.
Yeah, it seems like Ramp has that kind of first place, right? He's got it doing very well right now, but our kind of game 3 winner of Posick, right? We just watched that come out. Also landing Lazy. So we have 2 of the top kind of 5 right now all contesting each other at Lazy. That was actually interesting that Daddy P and Posick both land here at Lazy Lake. You know, they have been kind of getting into little engagements in the early game, but then they kind of brought it fully back into that in-game 1v1 situation here. But it does seem like we have more players landing. A third player has decided to land here again this game. So that may have been one of the players earlier on who decided to disengage, and he said, you know what, that game plan, my B strat didn't work as well. I'm going straight back to Lazy Lake.
I like to see it. I mean, a lot of players sometimes don't even have a B strat or a C strat. I think it's so important to have alternative drop spots. So you like to see, you know, players that decide, hey, this isn't necessarily working out. Let me try something different. Or on the flip side, maybe this is a B strat for someone else. We don't know who exactly is landing here, but maybe they're dropping outskirts, not working. They said, yeah, let me drop Lazy Lake, get a little bit more loot. Changing things up quite a bit is a wise decision. I bring this up every Fortnite broadcast, but it's true. Definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. If you're way behind in the standings, shake it up, change your playstyle, change your drop spot. You have nothing to lose at this point. As in 2-3 games might not be enough to get you into that top 10 if you're way behind. So you got to play a little more aggressive. You got to do something differently here. And as I say that, find Watson in a fight here. Not sure against who just yet, but on low ground, 150 effective HP, and it's gonna be against, I think, Chromium or Cranium in the 1v1.
Yeah, this is a tough one as well. No shotgun, 6 builds. He has to rely on that AR aim and the SMG aim, the tracking. He actually gets chunked right now, 58 HP remaining. But both players have no shields, but the other player has the shotgun, the tactical shotgun, which seems to be much better benefit right now, obviously, as Watson gets chopped out. He hits the beams, but almost clutches that fight. But unfortunately, Watson is picked up in this early game engagement. That fight will go to Cranium.
I got Cranium down to 22 HP, so just 1 or 2 shots away from getting that pick. Nice try from Watson, but unfortunately it does not happen. Now, it's just Hector. Also, finding themselves in a fight, and guess what? It's against Mars. Someone actually, I think Hector decided to drop east of Misty Meadows, I believe, and Mars is not happy about that. Mars is going to guarantee that no one drops there in games 5 and 6, hence why Mars is playing like an absolute psycho right now. Super aggressive against Hector, does not want anyone to contest east Misty Meadows, and that should do the trick.
Yeah, you can see Hector's low on mats. You can see him harvesting that tree as he goes. Just make sure he has something and doesn't get beamed in the back. But that, exactly like you said, Mars is putting his name on that side of the drop spot. But oh, Liam, a person who's not putting his name on that drop spot, as he managed to get picked up by Goatee in the early game. And this is a fight we've watched a few times going on that I think Goatee has been kind of getting the upper hand in these kind of fights too. But Seven, a player we've not watched too much on, actually Mars's teammate from the previous fall season where they both won. So both champions. Right now, we got to say Mars definitely up there if they're much more potential to go for the 2 times championship rather than 7 right now. But like I said, 3 games remaining. 7 can definitely clutch his back up and take the first place slot.
Yeah, 7 currently in 41st, so not in a great position here, but has been getting all of Misty West to themselves. So I wonder, I think that's the same player 7 has been dropping in Misty. Mars and 7 as teammates. I guess that makes sense. That's probably their trio drop spot as well. But despite having a really, really good situation in terms of loot, not necessarily able to turn it into much in the late game. And now just trying to... Oh, okay. Cross map bow is going to hit on Boomer, getting the Storm Surge tag needed. 7 will be able to obviously hit a good rotation here. Not too far away from circle, but can rotate early and get to dead side if they wanted. And as Reese said earlier, watching Reese's dead side videos, you understand the importance of playing for dead side on rotations. Meanwhile, Retail Ron finds himself in a fight.
Oh, beautiful piece control as well with the floor cone edit. I think he actually stood still for a minute, so I'm pretty sure Retail Ron has just clipped him. If you look out for the TTV Retail Ron highlights on YouTube, I'm sure you're going to be able to find that clip right there from his perspective. Hopefully we're going to have some of his voiceover in that clip too, where you'll be able to see what his reaction was to that. It was a very, very clean clip as well. But moving back to Lazy Lake, this seems to be Sage, the player who was landed here, the 3rd player who was landed in Lazy Lake. And moving back actually over, this is Hector, who we saw earlier engage with Mars. Is this Mars back in this fight? No, it's not. On Hector's disengage, he's managed to run into another player. Not looking good for him on the shield. He's doing a really good job taking Ryan peaks, but unfortunately, it's Jaith that manages to pick up the elimination on Hector.
Poor Hector. You know, just can't catch a break in this game.
Nah, he can.
No matter where they go, getting absolutely hunted and unfortunately going to get taken out. Hector is 87th right now, so not looking great for Hector, unfortunately. Meanwhile, engage Stendo on board with them. Only on the high ground against Byrich. Byrich, again, one of the players that played very well in heats. Switch on over to Brit HQ. Also finds himself in a 1 versus 1. He heal back up in the 1v1. Good situation in terms of Matt's high ground over this opponent. And we'll be able to heal back up with the makeshift assault rifle. Not ideal. See how Brit plays this.
Yeah, he's playing it really slow, just as always, but no shields in the inventory. He's taking tags. This is not a great setup for endgame here. None of the players that are around him really have the ability just to kind of jump in his box. That guy below him is weak, right? So he doesn't have any shields himself. So even if he picks up that elimination, he's not going to get that great of a refresh out of it. And it seems like he's just kind of going for Storm Surge tags on Anto over there. So yes, good strat for Storm Surge, but not necessarily the best setup for endgame. As we move back over to the Stendo fight in Stealthy Stronghold right now, where Stendo seems to be on high ground, hitting every single shot.
So far, so good for Stendo. The original fight we were watching before switching on over to Brit. And it looks like Stendo should have this one in control, but Rich actually does have some minis, able to heal back up. Stendo just completely controlling this fight for now. As I say that, though, brilliant job from Rich to actually 180 and turn on that. And now Stendo still has the advantage, and we'll be able to close it out. Nice job from Stendo to finish what was honestly scary there in the box fight for a second.
That got very, very scary, actually. That was worrying, because as soon as you jump straight in, I'm looking at it going, okay, where's this gonna go, right? At what point is this fight gonna go? As soon as you jump in the box, you miss the shot, both the HP starts to kind of align, and at this point you're going, right, who's gonna win? It becomes way too much of a 50-50 when you know that opponent's weak, and it's so scary when you end up whiffing and missing that shot. But moving back over to Daddy P, you know, we saw earlier in the game 3, the previous game, him doing this exact same rotate. So at this exact same time of the game, he was in this exact same position. So this is clearly the Storm Surge strategy that he's going for, looking for players rotating around him so he can get those tags off, just so that he can then really not kind of struggle with that Storm Surge. Remember, 19 players will need to be eliminated to Storm Surge when it pops up. He seems to be okay with his strategy so far.
Another stacked lobby here. If you take a look top left of your screen, 89 players remaining. So again, it's the early Storm Surge come into effect. We get down to that 70 threshold or 70 player threshold for Storm Surge. Currently swerved in the top 20. He finds himself a chest over in Weeping and some nice high ground as well. A lot of players nearby. Again, we continue to see Weeping be kind of a good spot in rotations on kind of clustering spot. Back on board a Trucelink Gamer who's been dropping over in Slurpy Swamp. Taken out early last game, but right now does not want to make that same mistake. Going to just live to see another day. So many players clustering over in Slurpy. A lot of players over in Weeping, as you'd expect with these kind of popular POIs that are center circle.
I know we're watching this fight by Jaith, who's playing very, very well. He's got the gold pump. Trying to take a shot. This is Skywalker. I think we saw this exact fight actually earlier on in Weeping Woods, where Skywalker was picked up the elimination. There was instantly eliminated himself, but Jaith being very, very aggressive. I think he knows he has the advantage here. This is the second time. Ooh, the actual ramp phase coming out of Skywalker right now, and he only has 5 minutes, so he's not going to be able to get any of that white HP back. So Jaith is going to be on the back foot now, running away. But we did see Skywalker with the harpoon. So potentially, despite the fact he's just sitting in wood, we could see Skywalker just fly into that box. But a really awkward fight from Kenny right now. 2 players stuck deep in zone as Horus and Virus, one of your many, many picks as well, along with one of mine, fighting deep in the storm here. And this fight, the longer it drags out, the worse this is going to get for all the players. Reduce Kitty with a single flopper, so he's going to be able to heal up. He's going to be able to get that white HP back, but now he has nothing, so it's all downhill. But going for a little edit course on his opponent, tries to ramp phase in, doesn't quite get in. He has plenty of materials right now to still get into this fight. Going under from Engage, not sure how that's going to end up, because Beansy is on a very, very important fight for him right now. Manages to pick up the elimination purely with the AR, and also in the elimination feed, we see Jaith picking up Skywalker as well. So that fight ended up actually going to Jaith's way.
It was a long fight, though. It was about 2-3 minutes ago we were catching on that one, but Jaith does get the advantage, does get the win, much like we saw last game, I believe, happen as well. Still, Kenny in this one with the HP advantage and the elimination, and of course the Siphon's going to help. Medkit will be picked up, and he will be able to reset here. Not a huge rotation. Still has a minute, but keep in mind, next circle is going to be collapsing, or next storm is going to be collapsing here in a moment. So this will be very, very interesting to see how Kenny plays this, if Kenny will even have a chance to survive here. Now, finally getting to catch some of the action of Dizrod, a player that we were excited to watch in this one. Haven't seen a whole lot of Dizrod in this competition. One of our heavy favorites coming into this tournament. Also representing the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. We're seeing Dizrod versus Sirius in a 1v1 outside of Slurpee.
Yeah, good job to disengage. You know, I think we've been talking about Slurpee in pretty much every game so far, because every one of the first zones is pulled down here. I think this is the second zone that is pulled down here as well. And, you know, we saw a little bit in the minimap. It's actually something to talk about earlier before we saw Jaith get into a fight. How many players were in Slurpee? I already mentioned that there was a ton of players rotating in here because they're able to get the kind of the chug cannon and heal up. But now, just seems like because the zone's here, every single player in this lobby appears to be going towards that position. But Mars is one of the only players who's made a smart rotation, deciding not to go to that super congested area. Obviously, he drops the Misty Meadows, so this hasn't been a long rotate for him. So his plan so far has just been to get some Storm Surge tags, relax out. But yet again, another player being attacked by some of the animals and the wildlife in the map right now. But as I mentioned, I said he was getting his Storm Surge tags, and he's only 56 above. So again, maybe another shot will be able to get him above, but he seems to be in a good position right now. But someone who's not in a good position, Jones.
Right, Jones is 42 HP right now, and no opportunity to get health back, and only a big potion to their name, which might be a little bit tough to pop if this player continues to just box rush him. Jones able to finally get some respite and heal back up at least a little bit. Might be a little bit scary though. So many players nearby. Jones with only an AR, a pump, and of course a bow in hand. Be a little bit careful. Back on board with Agenda. Twitch.tv, by the way. Check out Twitch.tv/Agenda. Love to these collegiate players. Against Oliver OG. It's part of TNA. One of our top premier organizations has made a big splash in Fortnite. It's been awesome to see here.
Just checked, Agenda is live streaming as well.
I love it.
You can see it. I may type in his chat. Good luck. Good luck. There we go. I won't be able to hear. I won't be able to hear what he says back, but I've just said good luck to him. Hopefully he'll watch the VOD back.
That's how it works. That's called we talk about the caster's curse off, and that's the caster's blessing.
Oh, yeah, well, I think so. Well, he's just gone into a fight. Let's see. He's managed to get the advantage in this, but he has been tagged back in return. If he is eliminated at this moment, that would be very, very bad timing for me to put good luck into his chat. But he is left with a single big pot here. And this is Coach next to him as well, who we've seen multiple times actually aggressing on the wall. Managed to dip out. Okay, he's creating himself a box. This is some really, really good spacing from here. As another player is attacking the wall, so there's multiple players in this fight right now. Or it's not multiple players, it's just actually Coach doing such a good job taking so many angles, but he gets the wall. Agenda trying to get out, trying to do anything he can to space himself here. He does not want to be in here, but he is draining materials. But as we move back over to Rampagita, someone who's picked up elimination, but Agenda actually picks up the elimination. So I did not manage to curse him. I managed to bless him, as you've exactly said. I don't want to take full credit for that elimination, but I will take partial because what a great play from him. Now he's got great refresh as well, up to 122 builds. But Jones, who we saw in a sticky situation, is now no longer in that situation anymore.
And good night to Jones. And meanwhile, we'll see how long your blessing lasts for Agenda, because absolutely you should take credit. I think at least majority credit, to be honest. You know, clearly that was all you and you're doing with the love that you showed to Agenda in their chat. Big shout out to Agenda. Do some love in the chat for Agenda right now. Give him your energy. See what Agenda can do. We'll see how much chat's energy and Reese's blessing will do for Agenda as we jump back aboard Rampagita. And Ramp currently with one elimination, a little bit less than we're used to expecting on a Ramp, but of course it's a late game where we typically do see Ramp pop off. And it might happen again here. 140 effective HP. Ramp play with aggression against Jaith yet again.
Yeah, you can see, I think Jaith has plenty of metal and materials because he wouldn't be using this much to rotate if he didn't. So I think Ramp notices that. He needs the metal himself. He needs the elimination. So you can see him kind of setting himself up in a position potentially to go for that. But what a fish from that is 2 spicy fish. That's going to be essentially 2 peppers. The RNG on that was very, very strong because those are relatively rare to fish. So that's going to be extremely useful for him coming into that end game, given that he survives. Now, he does have a struggling with the metal, but oh, actually Dizrod trying to make an aggressive play. And using actually one of the difficult combinations of weapons of the pump in combination with the infantry rifle, which if he gets in the box, he's not going to be able to spray with because that infantry just does a single shot damage, 8 ammo per clip. So this could be difficult for Dizrod here. He's also running lower on materials, but good job of him not using his metal up, right? He still has all of his metal pretty much remaining, so 300 metal total. He's not going to be able to harvest this later on, so he may be able to get back the wood in the brick. So it's not the worst situation for him now, but plenty far above Storm Surge. His game plan has been good, but a little alteration needs to be made to try and get some of these materials back.
Yeah, I'm guessing that game plan was just long-range poke with the infantry rifle. I'm not sure how else Dizrod would be that far ahead of Storm Surge with only 0 eliminations to the name. By the way, nice shot from Dizrod. Meanwhile, Mars, who sat and just kind of chilled and Misty for pretty much this entire game with a very, very slow rotation, ended up working out. Now finds himself in a pretty decent spot. Good loadout, purple pump, and a 1-versus-1 against Boxo. Ooh. Looks like Mars has the significant advantage. Tags for White knows that they have an opportunity to push this, but at the same time, Mars is a veteran. Mars knows, hey, not necessarily worth playing ultra aggressive. Storm Surge is over. I'm in a pretty good spot here. Let me just make sure I don't get myself in a bad spot and get kind of third party or chosen by the lobby if I push this fight.
Yeah, I would have thought he still would have pushed that one. Maybe even a little bit more aggressive than he was. But again, we see Hush on high ground. Really, really good position. We see really good wide shot of where all these players are deciding to position themselves to. So not really sure where the next zone's going to appear to. We're about to find out for that soon. But Daddy P right now seems to be completely boxed up in the center. And on average, this is going to be the best position because you're going to have to travel the least amount of distance to that next zone. And you see Posic next to him too. So two players that are very, very high up in the leaderboards in very, very similar positions. And as we see, that fourth zone ends up pulling south, actually. So we already know Danny P's in the zone. I'm not sure how much of Slurpee is in that zone, so I'd potentially Hush, who's on high ground there, will not be in the zone. But we do know is that Mars has to make a rotate, and this player next to him is so weak. So he's gonna probably potentially make a play, but Mars is doing a really good job of just building all around him and trying to get that early rotate. Yes, he's gonna have to invest some materials here to make this rotate, potentially for a little spray, but ooh, he gets tagged, and this is when those players are gonna start to aggress him, right? They know they've cracked his shield, they know he still has to rotate, so this is gonna be awkward, and we see the opponent who is weak behind him start to catch up to Mars, potentially sneaking up using those old builds, and potentially we're gonna see Mars get beamed in the back.
And this is why I'm also just surprised that Mars did not push that fight against Boxo, because now in the rotation, you have to worry about who's behind you, and you have to worry about, obviously, players that are already in zone. They're kind of gatekeeping you from that zone. That Mars could have taken out Boxo and not had to really worry about this fight at all. We'll see what happens, though, as Boxo's not in a place to fight at all. Meanwhile, Ramp currently with one elimination, alive and well, but not a whole lot of builds, so user refresh certainly. Spicefish movement will certainly help in late game on rotations, but Ramp's going to be playing aggressive, as we've known. Say sometimes high ground wins games, low ground wins championships, as now Ramp is looking to win the championship here for the spring PlayVS Spring 21 Fortnite Championship here in the collegiate scene. See what Ramp can do. Mars still in a pretty rough spot, continuing to get focused here. You see a pretty even dispersal and a decent cluster on the west side of this circle. Is going to be an absolutely ridiculous fight here as Storm Surge will come into effect with 10 players left.
Yeah, I want to know where this fifth zone pulls as well. You know, we have 30 seconds remaining, and if this zone pulls towards Slurpee, this will be okay. But there's a ton of players. But Mars drops a ton of players. Managed to hit him for white and actually picks up the elimination too. But it's getting awfully dicey here because he's down to 55 HP. But he manages to get some materials refreshed from that. Mainly wood. Didn't manage to get as much metal or bricks as hard mats and materials that he needs. But 60 plus builds going into the moving zones. This is plenty to kind of keep him moving if he pulls a good 50-50. If he doesn't pull a good 50-50, it's gonna be tough for him. But Hush still keeping high ground, and yes, Mars is on that fifth zone, so he has a good position right here. He's being blessed by the RNG gods right now, but Hush, not so much. We know there's such a huge cluster of players in this area, so what one of these players is gonna have to do is try to reuse some of these builds, but sometimes people's egos get in check where they just want other people to use their builds too, so it ends up being nobody builds and nobody rotates ahead, and that's kind of what we're seeing right now. We have 20 seconds until the zone starts to close, and only one player seems to have rotated out of the probably 15 to 20 over here.
Will be the first to rotate, and of course have their builds recycled. Meanwhile, Hush has ultimate high ground, 540 damage above the threshold, in a very good position to maybe get some eliminations here in late game. I didn't see the amount of builds that Hush had, but I feel to hold on to high ground. 6th place right now. Rampy Heat to find himself in yet another box fight in the late game. We know Ramp loves to take these fights. And connects for another crucial shot. Ramp takes out one, looks for the second here, and is going to get yet another opportunity here. Ramp is popping off with 2 eliminations, absolutely hunting Draven right now, but someone's right behind them.
Yeah, he popped that pepper fish, so he's absolutely flying the spicy fish. He's moving through these zones. He doesn't have to use too many builds, but he only has 100 metal and 100 wood. So when he gets into the zone, he's only going to be able to create 2 boxes. So I'm thinking he's just going to probably make either a cycle play or just fully box up metal. If he starts getting focused here, this could be very, very dangerous for Yang. But on high ground, we have Yin Yang. We also have Rhino on the opposite high ground. So our 2 players who are consistently in the best spot right now. Wherever 6th zone pools, one of these players is probably going to be at a better advantage than the other. But going back to our current leader, Ramp, although he has, I was gonna say difficult amount of materials, he's still making the most of it, taking the edits, making good shots here. He has 9 builds remaining, not designed to waste any, just sitting in this single box. But zone ends up pulling down to the southwest through almost close to Slurpee. This is a bit of an awkward zone as well. If that next zone can kind of pull into Slurpee, going through those buildings is always really awkward. So there's gonna be a ton of players here ending up in the congested right in this edge. So anyone who's kind of on the east side now, which probably will be Mars based on their rotate, has a relatively easier first zone because they can kind of stay on that east side of the moving zones, whereas everyone else is pretty much going to be clustered on the west.
think obviously the quickest way to get into the next circle on moving circles is the advantageous spot. Not necessarily the case. Meanwhile, we're on board Cut. Finds himself with an almost opportunity to connect for Elam. Not going to do that. Jake the Vibing takes out Crush. Oxo takes out Sway. Sorry, Bad Push takes out Sap Games in the kill feed. Top left of your screen. Meanwhile, see what Cut can do. Is they are very, very low in effective HP right now. 163 damage above threshold. So okay from a Storm Surge perspective, but that's going to be tagged up quite a bit. It is looking like their days are numbered.
Yeah, but 280 points. Even if he gets eliminated now, he has secured himself plenty. What he needs to do is move through his old builds, goes for a big shot in the back, because that's exactly what he's doing. He has no match or anything. Hits a big shot, but unfortunately does not manage to pick that up. But Rampagita is doing exactly the same thing, but he does connect with the shot, and that's actually on Cut that we just watched. But he is then picked up in zone 2. So 2 of our top players are eliminated before the top 20, before the big placement points come through. But Daddy P is still alive, same with Posick. So they are going to be gaining significantly more placement at this point than some of the other players who are around. And Posick in a really good spot with materials and with the pepper, but getting tagged in the back and getting aggressed on right now too. Doing a good job of getting away, keeping ahead of the zone, using those floppers, and this one mini seems to be in an okay position right now. Has the pepper again, might be okay for this next moving zone.
Yeah, we know Posick was able to make something out of not an advantageous situation in game number 2, or game number 3, sorry. We'll see what they can do here in game number 4, as it's looking a little bit bleak for Posick right now, but on the flip side, great for Yin Yang. Currently sitting with Ultimate High Ground, represent that Travis Scott skin with the awesome, of course, in-game concert we had months ago. On board out with Yin Yang, going for some long-range stinkfish plays, trying to force them outside of the box, but needs to be careful. He's actually going to lose high ground. I don't know if they had high ground previously. I think they did. Going to lose high ground, drop to low ground, finds one just around the corner there, blessed with an elimination on Jace. Nice shot from Yin Yang. Meanwhile, Posick finds himself in this fight at the bottom right of your screen.
Yeah, and we've seen that was Cactus Jack taking high ground. He was one of the players that we've seen kind of lose a few fights earlier on, but has really clutched it up this game. But Daddy P's still alive. What incredibly consistent games from him. 358 points right now. Barely any HP left. He's not going to be able to pop that med kit, trying to use the harpoon to get into the back of Tarps. He has no builds. He's just going for the psycho play as much as he can, but no, decides to slow down, goes into the bush, as you would say, and he's kind of chilling right now on high ground. We have Owl. We have Posick on the opposite side of the zone. It's a 1v1v1 at this moment, but Daddy P gets tagged up. I don't know if he's going to be able to get any more placement points, just moving any way that he can, but no, he is eliminated. It's a 1v1 and Posick in Storm gets eliminated, and the victory royale ends up going to Owl. Had a bit of a slow day so far, but really, really clutching that back up in game 4 with a huge victory royale, and this could definitely be a big comeback moment for Owl now in the second half of these games.
Yeah, that's the perfect time to do it, right? If you're Owl, not the best games 1 through 3, but certainly it was a matter of when with Owl. We all know how great of a player Owl is in the FNCS. Great to see Owl performing here today, going to St. Louis Community College, Merrimack. Big shout out to Owl with a big game 4. This is when you want to do it, right? Game number 4, 2 games to follow. If you can continue this momentum in the game 5 and game 6, sneak your way into that top 5. That's a huge play from Owl as we take a look at the replays here.
Yeah, we saw Beansy hitting them beamsies out, and Kinney, one of these fights that we saw, really tough ones in that kind of early game. It didn't really end up managing to kind of come through to anything, but Cut, this is one of his difficult positions where he ended up going against Rampagita, and Rampagita has the most eliminations so far. If anyone in this lobby you want to come across, it is not him, but that final 1v1 between Owl and Posick really was a massive factor, because you got to think, Posick was really climbing up in the leaderboards too, and that additional 5 points from the victory royale and 4 points from the elimination, so the 9 points total, would have been massive to climb him up. So Owl kind of denying that a little bit and giving him the points instead is very, very critical for this game.
Right. Posick, though, consistency has been key. You know, first place finish in game 3, second place in game 4. The player I've been the most impressed with, you mentioned it earlier, is Daddy P. Talk about consistency. 3 times, maybe 4 actually, placing top 3 in this one. I'm liking what I'm seeing out of all of these players so far as we are nearing our end. Game 5 and 6 is upon us. We're going to jump to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have the standings, game 5, and more. Don't go anywhere. Games 5 and 6 are all we have left to crown the winner of the PlayVS Spring 21 Collegiate Championship featuring Fortnite. It has been a awesome day of events so far. 4 games in, great gameplay. We were just chatting about it, Reese. We have been beyond impressed with the caliber of these players.
Yeah, the caliber has been really incredible, and it's only going to get better because there's 2 more games that are super intense. These are the 2 that, you know, it all builds up to. And looking at the top, the first 4 games so far, Daddy P Don't Miss has impressed me. Same with Rampagita a lot, right? They are kind of climbing ahead a little bit of Posick and Kuto down in second, but these 2 players have been playing incredibly good. I think Daddy P has had a first, a second, and a third out of 4 games. I think his first game didn't go particularly well, but Rampagita as well. Placement's not being as consistent. However, really outslaying pretty much everyone else in the lobby right now with an average of 5.5. But I think the next highest is around 2.75 average elimination. So he's literally double the amount of eliminations on average as the next best player. So really fragging out. And this is definitely an up-and-coming player that I want to be looking out for.
Yeah, absolutely. And kudos to Warucho as well. Silently and quietly been working their way into the top 10, currently sitting in 7th place, coming from Monmouth University. In 7th, Virus, we do see in top 10, Dr. Duke, Beansy, Mars, and a few others. It's going to be a crazy last few games here. As we take a look at our second screen, Sirius falling out of the top of the first page into 12th place overall. Average placement of 31st. We'll see what Sirius can do in games 5 and 6. And there you have it. Bizek, the player that I know we were certainly looking out for coming into this game. In 17th, we'll need to really play well, have some pop-off games in order to place in the top 10 or the top 5. I have my eyes on Bizek to see what they can do.
Yeah, you got to remember, like, there's still 100 players here as well. So, you know, when we look down to 18, you kind of go, you know, some people might be disappointed with that finish, but realistically, you're in the top 20% of this lobby as well. And this is a high quality lobby. So 2 more games left. Even if you get up into that top 10, that's incredibly so much better as well. Top 10% in a lobby like this, that's definitely something you can flex about to everyone else. Let's be real.
And with $50,000 on the line in Scholastic Awards as well, certainly a lot at play. Decent flex for sure, placing top 20 overall. My question for you is, if you're one of those players that are kind of in the fringe, the top 20, wants to try and take home a bigger chunk of that prize pool, how are you playing this? Are you saying the exact same in terms of gameplay? You're not changing the game plan too much? You're making it, trying to just make it to late game? Or are you changing your play style, going for a different strat, or opting for a different play style in games 5 and 6?
You want to firstly do something is just don't do anything drastic that you've never done before. We've seen this way too many times in tournaments where players just make a drastic decision. It's clear they haven't practiced it at any point in the last 2-3 years of them playing this game, or however long they've been in it. And that's not the play. You should have a backup plan if your current plan isn't working. And if not, you just have to identify the small mistakes you're making and improve them. if you're constantly being out-dropped and someone's beating you to that weapon, you need to figure out where your drop's going wrong, finish that. There's plenty of time between games to kind of just quickly look back, think over it, find the main mistakes that you've been making and change those minor adjustments, right? Huge game plan altering changes aren't the best unless you've already practiced and have these literally lined up as a B plan rather than just doing something drastic. Oh, I'm down, I'm going to W key the lobby. It's not going to work out, trust me.
That'd be like changing up your game style or game plan in the fourth quarter when you're still in the running, still have a chance to compete and play for the top level. I like that perspective, as always, from Reese himself. As guess what? Gameplay is just about ready. Game 5 is upon us as we have Game 5 and 6 to close this one out. This is where things are going to get absolutely insane in Games 5. Reese, any predictions, any kind of bold statements or predictions going into Game 5? Who do you think is going to perform here in Game 5?
I mean, we can't say anyone apart from Daddy P don't miss. Like, he's not missing, and he's not missing the placement points either at this point. He's been so consistent so far. So if we're going to say someone's going to be up there, it's going to be him. You know, Mars has struggled a little bit in those last 2 games. He's ended up being 46th and 24th, just checking there. So first 2 games are really good for him. I think in this kind of final third of the kind of tournament overall, he's going to turn that around. He's currently in 6th. So definitely maybe climb up, try and get into that top 5. And I know he'll be aiming for the first place slot, the back-to-back championships, let's be real.
Love it. Those are 2 good statements. I was going to say Mars as well. Another player hopefully can gain some momentum is Owl, our winner from game number 4. We said the importance of game 4 and performing, getting momentum going into game 5 and 6. Currently in 31st place, so has some work to do. We'll see what Owl can do, because guess what? Gameplay is ready. I believe we'll be jumping on board with Owl, as that's typically what we've done, is the winner of the previous match, and here you have it. On board with Owl to kick things off, and it'll be interesting. We also got to show some love to our winner, Daddy P don't miss, our current leader in the standings. Dropping Lazy late consistently making it to late games. I've loved what I'm seeing Daddy P don't miss so far.
Yeah, and, just to go back on Owl a little bit for a minute there, we watched game 3, I think it was, where he was eliminated off spawn, He's really had a tough time so far. 82nd, 57th, then a 94th, which was the one we watched. So I think there was a Storm Surge issue in game 1. I'm not potentially sure. We didn't actually see it. But then, obviously, that big victory royale has been good. So if Owl can make it out of Dirty Docks, he's only contested by a single player. Hopefully, he can find a way to disengage and then get Storm Surge tags. Clearly, his strategy's been working. Like, we know he's a high-level player at this point, but it seems like that fighting/Storm Surge in the early game and mid has been his biggest issue so far. So, like I said, you said, what are these players going to have to do? And that's exactly that. They're going to have to figure out the issues that they made, which there has been some, let's be real. If 3 of these games have not gone your way and 1 has, there's clearly been some issues there. So hopefully he's figured that out. Obviously, he managed to pick up the victory in the previous game, so hopefully we should see a lot more out of Owl. But moving back on to Daddy P, a player who's been playing very, very well so far, currently a number 1. Still contested by 2 other players in Lazy Lake, and you know what? Looking still strong in this game.
Right. He looking strong throughout the entire event here. And I like the perspective you shared on Owl. How to change things up, play a little bit differently, tweak things up a little bit as we jump on board with Watson over in Steamy Stacks, which again has been pretty stacked for early game. Not as stacked as we saw in games 1 through 3, because we'll have 3 players drop here. But obviously a interesting situation here with Watson, who has only 32 points, hasn't really been able to get much going. Appalore dropping off the side of the island here in a 1v1, and now literally like a fish in the water, no builds to their name, is hoping to just swim their way to survival. You better believe Flapjack's not going to let that happen here. I would be surprised, but Kepler's going to actually fight back and might some way somehow be able to turn this around with a makeshift assault rifle, hoping for something that the Bloom's going to play out in their favor. With that makeshift, of course, not having first shot accuracy. This is the most interesting fight I think I've ever seen in Fortnite. A good old-fashioned standoff between the 2 of them, but ultimately Flapjack finally gets the pick.
Flapjack gets the pick, and you see that the skin he's wearing there has little money bags on the back, so he's confident about what he's looking to do, and that elimination should say it. But Watson, like you mentioned, player not been so performing. I think he's in the kind of bottom 20 right now. But moving over to Eric is vibing. Someone I highlighted at the top of show right now. He does seem to be vibing in this fight. However, materials, maybe not so much only with 3s, but potentially should kind of drop down onto this roof, start harvesting so he gets a little bit more. Potentially editing on his own ramp and breaking his own builds may not be the best idea, but back to Watson again, who seems to be chasing Virus out here.
Great for Virus right now. Important game here in game 5 in the top 10. Virus certainly has a chance to win this tournament. Wow, Eric is vibing. Losing high ground as they had it. And Watson, long-range primal rifle, trying to close that one out if they can. Quick update from the Elim feed as well is Owl is actually able to take out Thanks over in Dirty Docks. Big moves from Owl. Off to a good start, trying to continue where he left off game number 4. Now,
yeah, that's a tough one for him, right? And we got Eric back on again. Still, this fight going difficult. And again, I told him he should have harvested some materials here, but it doesn't seem to go in his way. But the AI actually seems to be on his side because I think the opponent actually ended up shooting it. So it seems to be a little bit of a 2v1 at this point. So right now, Eric managing to harvest up, finally getting some of those materials back. This is crucial to do when you're in this kind of early game fight. You don't have anything. You need to be spending your time trying to build up because he can't sit and hold this wall forever. He now only has 2 builds remaining. The opponent has a P90. He has a big shot off on him, and it's Rocket Man who gets tagged up. And Eric now tries to put the pressure on him, trying to go around those walls. He knows he doesn't have the mats to build through, and clearly because Rocket Man has switched to those hard metals, he clearly doesn't have that many mats left either because he's hyphening through those. And Eric getting in right now, hits the big shot on the opponent up above, trying to take those jump shots because again, he still has no materials, using the ramp to walk on and jump up, and he ends up picking up the elimination on Rocket Man. That's going to be huge for him going forward.
Interesting fight right there. Nice shot from Eric using the surroundings to get that elimination. Great work. Meanwhile, Engage Stendo finds himself in their own fight, and oh my goodness, going to take an absolute brick of a shot right there. Heals back up with those floppers, back up to 100 HP. Also has some minis. An interesting one. Irish and Engage Stendo. Stendo opting not to pop those mini shields. Just gets right back in the fight, interesting enough. We'll see if that ends up costing them. Is it extra 50 HP? Certainly would have been helpful. Good job from Stendo, ending off their opponent, finally healing back up. And like this fight's pretty even.
Yeah, I think the opponent probably took a little bit of fall damage there. Seems like, yeah, he's probably taking 30, 40 fall damage, and Stendo still wants to be aggressive. You can see, like you said, mentioned, he wasn't going for the heals, and he still hasn't used the opportunity to pop the other minion. Just taking bloom fights, and Stendo's definitely an aggressive player, looking at any opportunity he can to get damage off, and his opponent seems to have run out of materials. Now it's going to be going down to the bloom fight, and Stendo hits the 32 damage, but he's also out of materials, almost picks it up, but there's a third player comes out of nowhere and ends up cleaning up, and that's Jaith. He's going to be loving the amount of mats and heals he gets from those eliminations.
Yep, you saw that slowly coming. I was keeping my eye on the mini feed at the bottom right, and you saw Jay slowly creeping up. And you knew it was not looking good for either player in that 1 versus 1. Jay reaps all the rewards of the loot and gets an extra elim as well. And I actually don't remember seeing where I saw Jay in the standings early in 24th. We've been seeing their name and seen them get quite a few eliminations. So I thought we'd see Jay a little bit higher in the standings, but one big game here, a good game number 6. Jay certainly is still in the running for a top 5 finish here. We'll keep a close eye on them. Meanwhile, we gotta show some love to Mars, and now flipping over to Swerve, who currently finds himself in a pretty rough spot here.
Yeah, in what seems like a very, very high build fight right now. So a lot of materials used, but nearly all of his wood, so that's fine. He can re-harvest that back. Swerve gets tagged. I thought he was going to be eliminated to fall damage, and he was. I thought it looked like he was going to do it once. He looked like he saved it, but unfortunately he ended up going down. So that's going to be really, really bad for him right there. And, you know, moving back over to Rampagita, I don't think we've seen any of Rampagita's early games at this point, and Pleasant Park seems to be the place where he's going. Potentially that's where he's been getting all of this great loot, potentially from the bunker chest in that kind of southwest basement building there, but actually getting tagged up by one of the bows. I think that was a mechanical bow, as 85 damage to his body. Lucky it didn't hit the 212 to the head. That could have been absolutely devastating for him. But this game, you know, ammo not looking so great for him, and this is going to be one of the main factors in terms of getting Storm Surge tags, just having enough assault rifle ammo. But realistically, when we're looking at anyone who needs to get Storm Surge tags, I'm not worried about Ramp. Ramp has just been phasing in, fighting anyone he needs to, and just bullying pretty much anyone around him to get that Storm Surge tags if he needs to. So, you know, some of these other players in the lobby have been struggling a lot more, but Rampage, not at all.
Saw some ammo there and opted not to get it. Back up for it. But meanwhile, Muddy finds himself right in the box of the opponent. Oh my goodness, trading shot for shot right there. Could have gone either way. But Muddy takes out Sap Games and is in circle, just chilling right now. Money with a compact SMG, the gold compact SMG, blue pump, good heals, pretty good spot here. 2 peppers as well. Haven't seen Money a whole lot in the standings and on screen. Currently Money is in 82nd, that's probably why. But we'll see what they'll do in this game if they'll make it to late game. Meanwhile, okay, Jose, what you got?
See what he's got. Storm Surge, not Storm Surge, the storm itself. Ticking down. He's going to try and pop this med kit, but this is not going to work. Jay picks up another elimination. So as you said, he was down on the leaderboards, but that's now, I think, 2, potentially 3 eliminations for Jay. And this is going to be looking like a really good game. It's 2 indeed. He's got almost capped hard mats. He's looking a little bit tough situation in zone, obviously taking probably a lot of damage, but he has a medkit. There are plenty of cars in here too that he can actually end up just rotating from, so shouldn't be too much of an issue. But Daddy P, our current leader, on rotate right now, and I mentioned if they're going to get into this good zone, they're going to need to get a little bit further in. This is a northeast zone, so kind of on the edge where he is now is going to be that congested side. So if he ends up being stuck here, then there's going to be a lot of players later on that end up here too. And notice, no one trusts the bush, not a single person. No one trusts it. We saw it in game 1. Right now, Daddy P thinking, I don't believe there's no one in here. Just a random harpoon shot. Doesn't hurt. And if there's someone in there at that point, drags them out even better.
Missing the wide open shield pot though, and says, you know what, I'm just gonna do this the old-fashioned way. And Daddy P, early rotation. We talked about the importance of rotating early before. I gotta say, it's looking a little bit scary for Jaith as they'll be rotating on really a busy side of the circle. I'm not sure how Jaith from Pleasant will do, but Daddy P on the flip side, early rotate. I like what I'm seeing out of Daddy P. Obviously coming from Lazy Lake makes it a lot easier. Nice job from Yin Yang right there, who was holding high ground last game. They get a pick on Exposed. Forrest Kun takes out G-Strap, and just like that, Yin Yang able to heal back up. Gold AR in hand, in a fairly good situation, but again, going to also be as part of this large cluster coming through on the busy side of circle. It's going to be a little scary on that rotation. You got to be careful. Mars also just riding the edge of this circle as well. Trying to go for a dead side rotate. Wise decision.
Very, very wise decision. He's making a really nice play here. This is kind of clinical, right? Rotating past Catty. This is something that a lot of players on this side do just to kind of keep away from any players who go through lazy and often congested area. But moving on to Exceed, definitely not looking too good in this fight right now. His material's running low, only got minis to heal himself up, and this is Dizrod, who we know is a very, very competent fighter right now. Not having entirely the best day, doing very, very well, but not in that commanding top 5 spot like we were used to seeing him in. But Exceed taking the high ground now. This is going to be very, very low amount of builds left. Dizrod hits the big shot down to 58 HP for Exceed. He's trying to get back into his old builds, but this is probably going to be very, very difficult to Exceed to turn this around. He's going to need to hit a big shot, and the longer this goes on for, the worse this gets. But it seems Didrod's making the smart play, even though he's got the big beam to disengage, but Exceed has that new weapon that's been released back into the game, the infantry rifle, which does 42 body shot damage with 2 times headshot multiplier, so it does a ton of damage. So that's going to chill him on that storm surge damage, but I don't think Exceed's going to be able to get back into the zone unless he finds some sort of white heals around him. But we see Dizrod very, very okay on their white heals. He still has the slurp fish, which will give him 40, so he should be okay with that. And he's using that pepper to rotate out there. Not the ideal time to use it. You maybe want to use that between 3rd to 5th zone to get into a good position, and then once in end game as well. But you know what? If you're stuck in zone, this is the time to use it.
Use it or lose it. Wise decision. Just be careful. Good situation right there. Or at least a good decision coming through from Dizrod. On the flip side, Exceed from Bay State College up in Boston. A little scary, stuck in zone. Rampahita, who we saw earlier in Pleasant, and looked like Ramp was going to get stuck in zone. Looks like Ramp was able to get themselves out of that situation. Find a decent amount of ammo, but could certainly use more as Ramp looking to just continue to play that aggressive style of play that's worked out well. No limits to Ramp's name right now. Obviously, going to be tough to play aggressive right now with their current inventory and not the best heals overall. Might be a little bit of a scary game. We'll see if Ramp can make something out of nothing. It's certainly the time to do it, right? Game number 5. You've been playing well. You're in 2nd place in the tournament. You got to go huge here in a game where you don't really have the odds in your favor.
Yeah, and if someone's going to go big, it's going to be Ram. Let's be real. The amount of eliminations he's gotten so far, it's going to be him. But moving over to Posick, another player who's in our top 5 currently. Looking awfully good. Really, really good materials. No big pots, but it's not the end of the world for him. And in a relatively good side of the zone. You see, there's not that many players around him. If he has to rotate kind of north, you can go near Dirty Docks area. Should be really, really free to rotate that way, which I've just psychically imagined the zone to be there. I should predict some zones or maybe some lottery tickets anytime soon today. And this should be a relatively good rotate for him. He should just rotate north. I think he's decided to maybe get a drink of water, maybe go a little bit AFK, maybe just take that extra second to plan out his rotate instead. And here he goes. He's trying to make it. You can see that basically just going to white line because he's set himself in such a good position before. But maybe I'm speaking a little bit too soon. There are some players looking out for him around, and it's Mars who's also in this area. So 2 of our players who are in the top 5 still in the same position. So definitely this side of the map, very, very good for these players looking to stay alive and keep that rotate going for a long time.
Not very good for Draven. Below Storm Surge right now, and slowly but surely is just going to dwindle down in HP and needs to take this fight quick. And it's against Jaith, who we talked about. not necessarily in the best position coming from Storm, but is more than okay from a Storm Surge perspective. And Jayth might just outlast Draven. You obviously hear the audio cue. You don't exactly see the visual, but you hear the audio cue. Jayth might be aware. Either way, Jayth is playing very, very aggressive here, continuing with the theme of this game, which has been aggressive. High elims. Verminus, unfortunately, gets taken out in the top of your feed right there. To Storm Surge, and Draven survives, but barely. Wow. So far, so decent for Draven. We'll see if they continue to obviously survive by the just barely against this fight against Jayth.
Yeah, and he's not in the best spot. Let's be real now. After that fight, you know, when you're in a bad spot like this, you see when you speak to any NPCs on the map, they have the ability to just give you a random item, and a lot of times you've got your fingers crossed. You know, every single finger is crossed with another one. You've crossing your arms, your legs, and your toes. Everything's crossed just for the fact that you get a minis, maybe a big pot. But no, he has unfortunately got the bandages, so he's not getting bailed out with that one, unfortunately here. But moving over to Vig, who's kind of in a similar spot. I think he's going to end up rotating past here, but roughly you can see on the edge of the zone how many players are contested there. And this just goes back to how many times we've talked about congested side of the zone. And if they start turning around, it's kind of over for him. But Daddy P actually maybe struggling with this rotate a little bit more. You can see him being stuck on the edge, very, very close to a bunch of people. And there's a very high chance that this next zone could pull north or to the east into Dirty Docks. And this is going to be really, really tough for a lot of these players who are kind of situated on this hill, because there's a lot of eyes looking at you no matter which way you rotate from here.
And finally, we'll see an endgame where verticality matters, as we haven't seen. We've seen a lot of flatland endgames so far, and we're going to see an interesting late game with verticality playing a crucial component. As say that, Vig gets taken out by Jayth. Jayth just continues to roll here. Very, very aggressive game. That's 3, 4, maybe 5 elims for Jayth so far. Daddy P got the rotation through, looking to just get gifted with an elim. Will he get it? It's not just yet. Almost connects elim as Skywalker is surviving just barely across the way here from Daddy P.
Man, if only Daddy P could see that health bar above Skywalker's head, you know he'd be spraying and spraying for it. And yeah, again, I am correct in another zone prediction where it pulls north. Yeah, again. So I'm telling you what, once we're done, I know it's late here for me, but I'm going out and I'm buying some lottery tickets. Can I buy them online? I might have to go away for 2 minutes and buy some lottery tickets right now instead, because I'm predicting all the zones here. I might have to try and do the 5th one too, but maybe if I might get exposed if I do it wrong. So
plus you gave Jenda the blessing earlier. I think you're just a lot of good luck coming your way.
I think so.
You're giving it out. It's good karma. It's a good situation right now. I definitely
should use this power sparingly though. I must say.
Yeah, you should. You're gonna use it all up.
Yeah, I use it for myself potentially at some point.
No, use it for Draven right now. Draven's just not in a good situation. I think he's unfortunately just a Draven B in his current situation here, as we're going to switch back over to Daddy P right now. Daddy P above Sabotage.
Yeah, Daddy P, not in a great spot. Max distance rotate. This is often one of the most difficult to make, and he has a tough decision. Does he drop down and go kind of down the hill, but then anyone can kind of spray from him from above if they see him? However, he may be able to go unnoticed, so it's a kind of really tough 50-50. If he goes up on the hill, there's going to be a lot of players in his way, so it's a really difficult rotate to make regardless. But actually, Watson in the zone. We mentioned him earlier. He was only on 32 points, but in a really, really good position to see kind of center zone on the top of that hill right there. This could be the game where he can kind of clutch up. Remember, if you get into that top 50, this is where you start to make any of those Scholastic awards, right? That's where you start getting the moolah, the money. So at this point, we're going to want to see those people who are down below definitely start to have big games. And, we may not see them in the top 20, but we're definitely going to see them gain, actually, something out of this in terms of those Scholastic awards. So Posick as well, another player in the top, still rocking in this game with 303 points, looking to make an aggressive play, hits a 87 shot onto 7. Another player we've been mentioning a little bit here too, and just cycling into the box here, trying to take his wall, but no, wants to disengage. You don't want to get too overly aggressive, but manages to find himself a little loot pile here, which is going to be a really, really nice refresh for him.
Actually, I think it was 7 who was able to get a pick some way, somehow in the middle of that fight, and was able to also get a nice refresh for 7. 7 keeps himself alive against Posick here. Both of them pretty even in HP, I believe. Jayth gets another one on Agenda. Jayth just continues to roll here, looking like our ramp in this game is Jayth, I think, with at least 5 or 6 elims. It's a must-perform game for Jayth, currently sitting right outside of the top 20, I think in 24th. Certainly will be well above that in the end game based on elims as well. But the key is, can you make it to late game? Placement is everything in this format. Speaking of ramp, we got to switch on over as ramp some way somehow is still alive given the less than ideal situation we talked about earlier. Storm Surge is active, but ramp knows he's going to have to do something here to try and stay above that Storm Surge. Actually, may not have to with 51 players alive.
Yeah, and the last 2 times that we saw him in this situation, he hit max pumps. So he has that blue pump right now, and Goatee next to him has under 175 HP. So he's perfect fodder to be one pumped right now. But Ramp in good spot in zone, like I said, potentially not going to have to worry about Storm Surge. Only one player needs to be eliminated, and they're almost definitely going to have to be on this rotate, because this is a tough rotate for a lot of players in the lobby. And as you can see, it's now under that kind of 50 threshold. So Storm Surge is not going to be an issue anymore at this point. But I see Danny P starting to make a difficult rotate already beginning, and he's also low on material. So this could be one of the first games we're seeing Danny P not in that kind of top 5. And this could shake up the leaderboard a lot unless he kind of makes a big play and picks up an Elim here.
Now the refresh will be huge for Daddy P, and he might find it right in front of him. He's going to break right into the box of his opponent. I'm not sure what his teammate was doing right there, or his opponent kind of caught sleeping. I don't know if he realized where he was getting shot from Daddy P, but either way, exactly what you want if you're a Daddy P fan here. If you want to see, if you're a fan of consistency, Daddy P has been captain consistent so far, as I've been so impressed. 3 games in the top 3, multiple wins, back-to-backs. We'll see what Daddy P can do there in this one. Game number 5, only on top of the leaderboards, but only 9 builds total. That refresh wasn't exactly what he needed.
No, it was much less than what he needed. At least he got the 4 points out of it, but right now he's still getting pressure on another player. Still has 3 builds remaining, and yet again, this is going to be something very, very difficult he's going to have to do here. He's going to have to make a play, jump in, potentially get a very, very big pump shot. He's not going to be able to put 1 pump with that blue pump in his inventory unless he comes across a weaker player. But notice, Pozic on the high ground. This could be Pozic's game to take over the first place slot. I think he was currently 3rd going into this match, if I remember correctly. So he's looking very, very strong right now, being on high ground in a commanding position with 68 builds. So enough to get him through first moving, in particular when he pulls it. So notice, one of the difficult things about this zone is high ground is so important. Because it pulls uphill, all of those players are going to be on low ground and scrambling, which means that a ton of those players are all going to be fighting each other, and a lot are going to be eliminated on this just first rotate alone here. So we're at 42 before zone starts moving. I bet we're going to be on a lot less by the end of it. And Posic almost got chopped out there at the same time, but good job keeping high ground. He knows the importance of it in this kind of zone.
As these players are rotating, as you're talking about the rotation and the skirmish from players down low, it's an opportunity for Pozic to try and get some fights. And we talked about the verticality of this end game, and it's going to see it come to fruition. As Pozic's actually going to lose high ground because he didn't necessarily have the vertical awareness to maintain it. So players have to traverse their way up the mountain here. And in the end, I'm not sure who was able to hold on the high ground right above our screen. It's going to be Noms TTV for now. We'll see where they're at. And Matt says, Daddy P, don't miss. Finds one on Oliver. That's huge. Oliver, top streamer, playing and competing in this one, part of TNA. One of our favorites, I think I would say, coming into this one. Daddy P takes them out. And Daddy P, we said, was in a pretty difficult position in this game. No, only steal left, and Matt's still somehow making something out of nothing. I'm loving what I'm seeing.
Yeah, he gets a reasonably lucky zone that ends up pulling back the different direction, so he doesn't have to have time to have to pop the big pot. Sorry, he does have time to pop the big pot, but Noms manages to get ahead of the zone and crank up to the high ground. So Pozic has lost height at this point. I see him still running around down below in low ground, so he's still in the game right now, so he's still gaining points every single time. But Owl, another big game for him. This was a good zone for him because it was on Dirty Dogs in his drop spot, but he ends up getting picked up by Drakey in this moment. And as I said, there's tons of people being eliminated now. We're down to 13, but Isaac, a player that we have not seen actually in endgame and watched through this point yet, now potentially clutching it back up, currently on 263 points. This could be the time for Bizey to get into the top 10. His mechanics very, very clean. His gameplay is always get ahead and spray back. That's just the Bizet classic kind of playstyle that we are very, very used to seeing. And on high ground, Noms still maintaining it right now.
Yeah, meanwhile, we have Daddy P versus Pozic, the back and forth fight we've seen in our last 2 or 3 games between the two of them, placing top 3, but finally Daddy P is going to get taken out. A great game from Daddy P, though, all things considered, to make it into the top 10. That should help him maintain a first place spot in the standings. Isaac going to get shut down and taken out. Nam still with high ground. Mars still alive. And you got to think it's Mars's game, or sorry, it's Noms' game to lose right now, but with players like Mars, Pozic, I believe, both still alive, it honestly could be anyone's game, but Noms is just sitting on high ground controlling this one.
Yeah, and Mars, we've a bit of a sleeper this game. He just came out of nowhere still being alive. I think he's been very low ground, just hiding out, keeping alive, potentially with 4 eliminations too, so he's been popping off, getting those refreshes, but currently with no mats. Jumps into the box, hits a big 1 pump onto Sway on the bottom ground. It's now a 1v1v1 situation. Again, Noms in the commanding position. Mars in the second best position on low ground, still with 25 builds. Who in a difficult spot, just hiding in a corner. Clearly no builds remaining, so I think Noms will probably pick up that elimination, and it'll be a 1v1 between Mars, but potentially not. He's still alive. alive. Coot's still alive on that mid-ground layer. I don't know how he's done it for this length of time, but he jumps into Mars' box. Mars hits a 108 and then picks up the elimination too. It's a 1v1 situation right now. The harpoon in. Mars hits the shot and a huge creative play to pick up the victory royale for Mars. 377 points. I'm not sure if that's put him into the first place slot, but he was down in 5th after those incredible first 2 games. He's definitely climbed the leaderboard somewhere 1st to 3rd region right now. We'll have to check it out later.
An unbelievable game from Mars right there. And I was actually going to comment earlier, we haven't seen his mechanical prowess just yet necessarily in this competition, because Mars is a very methodical player, a textbook player who's going to make the right decision. We haven't seen Mars take unnecessary 1v1s very often. Well, right there in the late game, we saw his mechanical skill. It was an unbelievable display right there. Mars popping off when it matters the most in game number 5. As we take a look at the replays here, Daddy P, gonna give your hat off to Daddy P for making a great game out of a not so great situation. And this will be interesting to see the standings between Daddy P and Mars. I think they'll be in the top 2.
Yeah, I think so too. You know, we can't be forgetting about Ramp. Not sure how many points he was on. You know, he did go down a little bit earlier in that game, but still, the amount of eliminations he always pops off with, he'll definitely be climbing up the leaderboards regardless. So I think it's a little bit between 3 to 4 people right now coming into this final game. So this last game could be incredible.
Mars from the University of Maryland representing the Big Ten so incredibly well. You love to see it. Great game coming through from Mars in game number 5. It's all going to come down to our final game, game number 6. And at this point, it's anyone's game. We're going to have game number 6, the standings, and more when we come back from this short break. Don't go anywhere. Game number 6 is here, and let me tell you, the PlayVS Spring 21 Championships have certainly not disappointed so far. We've had unbelievable gameplay, and guess what? The standings are ready. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the standings are going to be going in to game number 6. Reese, walk us through it.
Ooh, this is super super close. So Danny P way ahead right now. Actually, very impressive with 40 points ahead. But look at how close this is between second down to fifth. Coop, Ramp, Mars, and Posick all so close together. Remember, every single one of those placements is more and more Scholastic awards. So they make more money, more moolah. I kind of said it wrong out of that. So every single one of these eliminations is going to be super critical. Now, Hush and Drakey down below can still overtake some of these players above, but they're going to need a massive game to do so. So what we're going to be needing to look out for is 100% watching that elimination feed coming into this final game for those top 5 names. We want to see if Daddy P, Coop, Ramp, Mars, or Posick are eliminated early, because that's going to massively impact the leaderboards. And I'm sure into this last game, all of these players are going to be playing to their best of the abilities to ensure that they are not eliminated off spawn. But one thing, Daddy P has not made it. He's made it to moving zones every single game, So every single game he has made it to the moving zones. So he's going to be collecting some placement points almost definitely so far. So he's been playing out of his mind. It's going to be tough to beat him.
Absolutely. As we take a look at the second page here, you see Sirius has been lingering within the top 11, top 12 throughout. Jate is vibing and to break into the top 20 for the first time. Harsh, who's worked their way down the leaderboards, unfortunately. Bizik, Dr. Duke, and a few others, they will be working their way up the leaderboards, are trying to fight for some additional prizing in the Scholastic Awards prize pool, of course, supporting their collegiate careers, which is great. But at this point, honestly, it's Daddy P's game to lose. He's so far ahead. Daddy P's doing such a great job. The most consistent player in this lobby, hands down, representing the University of Florida, the Gators. I think the only player from the University of Florida in this competition, and Daddy P has been playing lights out. From what you've seen so far, what's working so well for him?
I mean, just being super consistent, right? We've seen him landing at Lazy Lake. We've seen him be so good getting out there because he's not engaging in anything. He's doing an early rotate. He's getting all of his materials early, getting his Storm Surge. He's just setting himself up in a good position earlier on, right? And that's put him 40 points ahead. I had to do the quick maths there while I'm thinking. So he's 40 points ahead. So that's currently 30th. So any of the teams down below need to get to 30th just to overtake him in placement points alone if he gets nothing this game. So I've done the mental maths. We're looking out for, if Daddy P goes down early, we're looking for any of these players to survive past top 30 to be able to overtake him. So it's going to be very tough for some of these players coming down below.
Right, and given his consistency, it just seems so unlikely, right? He hasn't placed anywhere outside of the top 31 so far, so as long as he continues to play consistent, he'll be in a good spot. Daddy P is going to be playing the same playstyle, I think. Dropping Lazy Lake, avoiding those early game fights, avoid the 50-50, and I wonder, I can't remember if it was Posick or who it was that drops Lazy Lake with him, but will they take a fight against Daddy P early on, try to take control of fate in their own hands? You have an opportunity to try to take that 50-50. You don't see it happen too much in Game 5 and Game 6, that type of grief style of play. But there's an opportunity here. You better believe if someone sees Daddy P in the elim feed at the top left of their screen, they're going to play more aggressive.
No doubt at all. And our next game is ready. The game, Final 6, the most important one, right? This is where it all comes down to. This is what we have to be keeping an eye out for. This is what all day has built up to. The previous 5 games has led to this moment in Mars. Our last game's winner up on 377. Currently in 4th. We see in our top right as well, Daddy P off spawn. Currently contested by the same amount of people. So no one seems to be changing up their drop spot in Lazy. Everyone's still landing there doing this exact same strat. So this seems like Daddy P's feeling awfully comfortable right now.
He's in a good spot, just has to do more of the same. What's worked so well, the recipe for success. His game plan's been perfect, honestly, and it hasn't been anything too fancy. You know, Mars, we've seen some very kind of cheeky, smart rotations. We've seen him actually just kind of chill at Misty, and with late rotations, we've seen him play dead side. Daddy P's just rotating early, you know, really looting fast, has a really solid loot path, leaving Lazy Lake early, rotating quick to get in circle. We'll see, of course, where the circle is going to be here in Storm number 1. But nonetheless, I'm liking the consistency out of Daddy P. It's working out very well for him. However, there's still a couple other players that have contention, right? Mars in the top 4. Thought maybe he'd be a little bit higher, but he is just so close, right behind 2nd and 3rd place overall. Hita in 3rd with 378. Mars has 377. Meanwhile, your boy Eric is vibing. We'll see if he's vibing after this fight here. 80 points to his name in the competition, and he's going to get the elimination. That's another 4 for Eric.
Yeah, he definitely vibing after that one. But again, still down lower on the leaderboards, 80 points for now, facing Rocket Man. And I think both of them are relatively similar down. Rocket was a little bit more points than he was on 145 after that, so he'll be locked in there. But moving over to Stealthy, this is a fight we've watched a few times here, and it's not looking so good with the 22 points overall and the blue makeshift currently in his inventory. Almost no ammo, and this is going to go to Stendo yet again. Stendo has won this, I think, every time we've watched in on them so far, but also Virus picking up another elimination on Watson. So Watson playing well that last game, but unfortunately that seems to be pretty much, I think, the only one that he's performed on so far.
And a key theme here, and we've seen it, players that are dropping contested are so much less likely to succeed and to win. Is that player right there is going to take it out and give up? It's Wheels. He's like, all right, I know I'm done. Not much I could do. Stonky Nate gets the pick. But again, you are so much more statistically unlikely. Big shout out to Prodigy Analytics, who I think actually tracks this, but I think it's something like 83% or 87 or maybe 90% of players who drop uncontested win games. So it means you have a 12% chance to win a game if you drop contested. And you see that early on. Eric has been fighting and splitting that fight with Rocket. As a result, neither of them are in the top 20. We've seen Virus continue to split over in Steamy Stacks, and neither of them, him or Watson, are in the top 10. So very, very important to not drop contested. That's why players like Daddy P, like Mars, are finding so much success.
Yeah, and I know that's the thing where the players are giving them some respect, right? Because technically, Daddy P is contested, where there's a lot of players landing on this drop spot, but they're just not fighting, right? They have enough loot and they can disengage. There's plenty for the amount of players that are landing there, and they're playing it smart because the players landing there are all top players. But Mars is a very, very important engagement. He seems to be in the advantage now with 50 HP above the opponent that he's trying to fight now, staying on high ground, and it's ski season, actually. Landing in Misty Meadow is very, very relevant to his name, but almost losing the Bloom fight. But Mars trying to take a nice window peek, not trying to be anything too aggressive, make a mistake here, because if he is eliminated here, all that's going to happen is players may overtake him and he potentially loses out on more Scholastic awards. So he needs to be ensured that he's not making any mistakes. This is pretty much a free elimination, but ski season is out. He's skied on way, way out of that in Misty Meadows right now.
No, thank you. Even though he's the one that decided consciously to drop on the east side of Misty, knowing well that Mars has been really occupying this POI. And, it's game 6, and Mars is still playing this with aggression. Typically early on, you'll do this to try and kind of claim the spot. Mars has to be careful here. He's all right there. Got a little bit scary for a moment, but Mars is in control of this fight almost completely. I am loving what I'm seeing out of Mars. His mechanics have been on point. He clearly warmed up well, and he's been looking great this entire tournament. We'll see if he can end up on top in this fight against Ski Season, and that's a nice shot, but Ski Season's going to actually shoot him right and knock him for about 120 HP. It's looking so scary right now for Mars. This is exactly the scenario we were worried about.
Yeah, Ski Season now has the advantage in this fight, potentially not in materials. Well, Mars only has 2, so he probably does have the advantage on the materials at this point, but almost no heals in Mars' inventory right now. 377 points, and if he's eliminated, like I said, it's going to go all down from here on out. Other people will overtake him, but he's making a smart play, disengaging. However, this game is now not set up for him very well, because all of the heals on this side of Misty are going to be taken by both players consistently trying to heal up. So what are they going to be left with for early and mid game? Probably not much. But moving on to Chapters. This is a player we've seen fight in the early game quite a few times so far. Some successful, some not, but end up whiffing the shot a little bit. His opponent has not that much HP left. Chapters doesn't know that, but he hits up the big 37, and great edits indeed onto Sundry. And that's going to be it for his tournament over, but Chapters is still going to play out the rest of this game.
Wow. An interesting perspective here on Pone. Terminus in the distance. Ends up taking place. Wow. Oh yeah. And himself in a push. You have to say it like that every single time, by the way. And with high ground right now.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, amazing. Not only good piece control, but great name control. I wouldn't be able to get that gamer tag on the Epic servers, no doubt. Like, I want something as cool as that. Resub just doesn't live up to an oh yeah, but making good plays, trying to grab high ground, but gets tagged. He only hits the 40 damage shot. He only has big pot, so it's going to be really tough for him to actually be able to get any of these heals off at this point, because it just takes 5 seconds to pop each one. So he's going to have to try and go for an aggressive play, which is exactly what he's doing. He's taking high ground, but he ends up being eliminated. And I'm guessing he did not say his name or gamer tag out loud while being eliminated right there.
Yeah, I doubt it. Oh no. Yeah, right there. But meanwhile, you also saw in the Olympiad, Posick and Daddy P both got picks, which is interesting. Both the players that dropped Lazy Lake found themselves their own elims respectively. Meanwhile, it is absolute madness in Misty Meadows as so many players are converging here. And Mars is spending so much time fighting early on. It's still ski season has been his bane of existence in the game. And while Mars now has a good advantage, gotta be careful because players nearby might just rain on his parade. But Mars is doing such a brilliant job playing defensive, playing cautious. That's one thing I've been very, very impressed from Mars. Again, a textbook player, really doing everything right in these fights. I have been beyond impressed by Mars and what we've seen so far, as you'd expect from Mars, all the experience he has.
Yeah, I completely agree, but this opponent's fight seems to be going his way. He gets the edit, he whiffs the shot on Ski Season, but Ski Season has to control, but it's all down to Mars. Mars picks this up, but now this is where issues arise for Mars coming into this game. He has a max distance north zone to rotate to, and he has no shields remaining. So everything he's going to be doing is super important for the rest of this game, but some nice build mechanics from Owl going up to take high ground. Managed to place a cone, being really slow. Doesn't want to edit through, doesn't want to take any damage back. This is a veteran player. He knows exactly what he is doing against the other opponent, which is Thanks on high ground right now. Just taking an angle. Really nice little angles just so you can watch Thanks. You know, that little bit of a third-person view over the top just to see exactly what he's doing if he has an opportunity to take a shot, playing very slow because he has the zone. So this is a northeast zone, so this will favor any of the lazy players right now. So obviously what we mentioned, Daddy P and also Posick coming out lazy. This is not a bad zone for them. They're probably in the zone, not very far if it needs so. This is going to be very good for them. Right now, like I said, Owl, bit of a stalemate. I'm not sure how many hard materials he has, but this fight, not really doing too much for any of them because it's just a stalemate. They need to get moving, and Owl decided to go for the high ground, but gets coned and almost boxed up as well. Good use of the ramp flip to try and get himself out of there, but the other opponent actually ends up dropping down, but he hits the double body shot, crack. So Owl now aggresses in. He goes for this elimination. Thanks, probably not on that many materials. You can see the amount that he's actually switched. If he goes from metal to brick to wood, that means he's low on materials because he's wasting through them. How many does he have left? Probably not that much at all. Owl making a play. If Owl gets in and makes the big pump shot onto Thanks, and I'm sure he said that while he picked up that blue pump.
And you know, Owl has not been happy about having to split Dirty Docks and having to fight things every single round. It's another contested drop spot and probably a key reason that we don't see Owl necessarily in top 10 up and contested in Dirty Docks and thinks he's been playing that aggressive. But Owl's gotten the upper hand in the last couple games, gets the last laugh. We also mentioned it for Daddy P and Posick. We'll have a chance to easy rotate over from Lazy Lakes. It's kind of victory formation potentially for Daddy P. Meanwhile, you'll see it on screen. We got our NA West Championship games coming up next. A lot of great competition in NA West. Another $50,000 in scholastic prizes to support these individuals in their collegiate careers, courtesy of PlayVS and Epic Games. Saw some stuff on display here as I've loved watching collegiate Fortnite. I know Epic continues to invest in a big way in academics or scholastic Fortnite with the high school level to collegiate level. Why not? It's amazing to see players that have a chance to do this. Get scholarships to play competitively. Meanwhile, we're on board with Rix right now, finding themselves in a 1-versus-1 here. Rix, one of our more aggressive players in this lobby so far, has really put a lot of high skill on display. We'll see if they continue that theme here against Andy.
Yeah, he gets beamed in the back though. Looking awfully difficult. Like, these players are being so slow and careful. But, you know, I say these players, though every time we've watched someone, they've been slow and careful in their fights. However, this game, definitely not as stacked as the previous. You know, Storm Surge hasn't really shown its head yet because we're not at that time in the game. And there's 75 alive rather than the mid-80s that we've been seeing in the previous matches. So there are definitely some players out looking to make aggressive plays, trying to ensure that they get every point they possibly can coming into this last game. It's all or nothing in this final one. So Rix, right now, a player who definitely has potential to every single time he gets higher on the leaderboards, he's making more and more earnings. He's not outside of that top 50, so he's trying to make the smart plays. He knows playing to end games gets the most points possible. Maybe out of realms of possibility getting first because he just doesn't have that many points capable. However, still can move up a lot.
Yeah, Parsman versus Crush in this 1-versus-1, and good situation, good let up for both of them. But Parsman with the gold AR, purple pump shotgun, a great situation. Garrett taken out by T Jones at the top of your screen. Two players that are not necessarily in contention for the leaderboards, but we'll keep a close eye on that elim feed. Parsman, despite having a remarkable loadout, decides, you know what, not worth wasting my materials, not worth wasting my inventory for this fight. Let me just quick rotate, get out of this one. Meanwhile, Mars, this is the situation we were worried about because of all of the attention that Mars had to give to that early game fight. Mars finds himself in a less than ideal situation, crafting still over towards the Misty Meadows.
You say he's less than ideal, but he managed to pick up 6 minis, medkits, and peppers. So despite the fact that he was not in a good situation. Sure, he's not in a good zone, but he managed to get the loot, right? So he has the ability to play out the rest of the game, just not in an ideal situation. But Draven dubs up against a player here in Risky Reels. I feel like every single fight we watch is always in Risky Reels this game. This has been a real hot spot. I'm obviously players just rotating through here, and a lot of players dropping here. I think there's 2 players contesting this drop spot as well. So there's a lot of fighting happening here going on. But right now, Vig deciding to disengage, and he has been one of the players who's been in these fights here every single time.
Vig versus Draven dubs. Draven been fairly aggressive for what we've seen so far. And it looks like that's continuing in this 1 versus 1, but good job from Vig. Really outlasting or trying to survive in this fight. Not sure what the material situation is like for Vig, but a nice edit, nice shot going to come through from Vig right there, and they're actually going to be even 150 HP apiece. This 1v1 in this box fight. Nice edit. That's why you cone early on, and there you go. The edits are going to come through from Draven. I love what I saw right there. Draven outplaying Vig in the 1v1.
Yeah, that's what you call a mongrel classic. A little bit of a awkward edit, a little bit of the, and usually you'd flip it back to the left side, but hey, that's actually probably a much better way to do that, editing it to the side, and the opponent had absolutely nowhere he could go here, but no surprise to us. Daddy P don't miss, above Storm Surge, and in a good position. Another player that we've seen, Hush, I think 6th or 7th coming into this game right now, is in a commanding position too, with plenty of materials, but in a little bit of an awkward fight. So this could mean a lot for him because he has an opportunity to get into that top 5 if he's able just to make it really into that maybe top 30, top 40, but he hits a big shot. He doesn't manage to connect any of the shots afterwards, though. A little bit of an edit course, but that elimination gets taken from him. So he gets the assist, the Storm Surge damage, but doesn't get any of the loot, anything like that. And now he has a max distance east zone rotating. He's in the Spire with a lot of players in between him. It's gonna be tough for him, and this is a really, really critical part of the game where he's definitely struggling so far given this position.
Mentioned his potential contention for top 5, currently in 6th place with 323 points, so he's a big Elim game, and that Elim getting stolen obviously not great as Jedi John, my John brother, is going to actually take the Elim straight from Hush. And Hush now with a far rotation, we'll see what they can do. Meanwhile, Rampahita, we've seen continuing to perform with high Elim games by a mile, 4.4 Elims per game. Right behind them is Daddy P with 2.4, so over 2 Elims behind the 2nd place Elim leader. Actually, I take that back, as Jake has gotten 3.2 Elims per game. But nonetheless, Ramp has been our most aggressive player, our highest Elim player. Fun to watch, certainly. The question is, game number 6, can you do it again, and can you place consistently? Ramp has gotten an average placement of 18.8 here. We know Daddy P's in a great position to potentially close this game out.
He's in the best position, right? He's on height. He's in this probably relatively center of this 3rd zone as well. He doesn't have to rotate. He's chilling on Storm Surge, but unlike Sirius right now, who's in basically the opposite of every single one of those things. He has bad materials, he's in a bad position, and we'll see the Storm Surge tags. You know, I don't want to discredit him on that so far, but right now, gonna have to make a big play, right? Potentially even pop this med kit, but player above. Oh, the player above ended up getting flame mode in the head. So this has just saved Sirius's game here. He doesn't end up getting materials from it, as he's only getting 38, and none of these builds are his. He needs to make a way out before the opponent pushes, and he manages to get out. He's into safety. He didn't manage to get really any of the materials from that, unfortunately. But moving over to Coop, another player who has kind of gone under the radar. And we've seen him here and there, but I don't feel like we've talked about him too much. But his placements have been incredibly consistent so far, from the 2nd best average placement out of anyone. That's why he was coming into this game 2nd. So he's gained 8 points so far this match. Looking really, really good in his positioning too. I think he's very, very close to where Daddy P is right now too. So I feel like these guys are going to probably end up together unintentionally, but maybe not on this hill. I swear this was the hill that Daddy P was on earlier, so potentially he's moved.
Given, Cut in 2nd place, or Coot as you call him, but you also say Boosh, so honestly I don't trust any of your pronunciations. We'll see.
You shouldn't.
Yeah, we'll see what Cut can do. We haven't shown him a lot of action on screen, but Cut in a great spot. 2nd place in the leaderboards, has kind of quietly played consistent. See what Cut can do as I say that. Hush still alive in 6th place. That's the first elim of many that are needed for Hush to try and break into that top 5. We'll see how Hush will fare here, and it's going to be a pretty far rotation for both Cut and Hush, I believe, coming through. I'm not sure where Daddy P is positioned, probably still in the same spot, but we'll keep a close eye on Daddy P in the observing feed as well.
Yeah, maybe my memory is just not serving me well, but I swear he was on that hill where basically where Cut was there too. So maybe he'd ended up making the rotate a little bit earlier. Potentially it was another hill that he was on, but maybe the zone RNG has blessed him and he's actually already in the zone. We'll basically find out with him later, but this is really, really big for Cut because Cut was currently in second, and he really just has to outplace Ramp, Mars, and Posick to be in that consistent second place slot. And like I said, for Daddy P to be able to be eliminated from the #1 slot, right, for him to not win this tournament, he's going to have to basically blunder relatively soon in this game, because as soon as it gets to the kind of the top 20, that's when he's going to get a ton of placement points. And mathematically, it might not be possible for other players to be able to overtake him at that point, because they are obviously created such a big lead of 40 points coming into this game. So he set himself up really, really nicely. And a lot of other players are too. Posick in a really, really good position on that southeast side of the zone here. Chapters 2, Mars on that hill to the northwest, so in a completely different spot, but equally as good depending on where the next zone's going to pull. I still haven't seen Daddy P in this game and where his exact positioning has actually been, but Cut still managed to make his way into the zone.
And I think that 40 points you're mentioning is actually, if I'm doing my math right, 60 points that Daddy P had at his advantage in this one, going into this game at least. So this is a significant lead for Daddy P, and I mentioned it earlier, it might just be victory formation. The victory tour for Daddy P, securing himself a top finish should do the trick, but we will see if that's the case. The Gators, University of Florida, represented and well represented by Daddy P so far, but Cut, representing the University of Akron in Ohio, second place right behind, still trying to put his own stamp in this game. And again, if Daddy P gets taken out relatively soon, it'd be scary. Cut right now, though, needs to find a fight as Storm Surge will come into effect. Needs to play aggressive. This is not looking great for the runner-up right now in second place in Cut, unless he can find Storm Surge tag momentarily.
Yeah, Storm Surge looking difficult. Still 6 people need to be eliminated, and the majority of players have made it into the zone, so there's not going to be many people being held here. Maybe 1 or 2, and this is Cut going against Owl, who we know has been a good fighter today. Potentially not the maybe up to the standard of Cut, because he's been performing very, very well, but again, he's going to need to grab some tags here. 7 seconds until the zone starts ticking, and another player aggressing his wall, so probably another player who actually needs Storm Surge too, but Cut gets tagged. This is massive for him if he gets eliminated here. Well, he's also below Storm Surge, so it's about to tag. He's getting sprayed from above, and he gets eliminated. 399 points. So he was our second place. And now if Ramp, Mars, or Posick end up going over that, but Ramp is taken out too with 396, and Mars is overtaken. So Mars is currently in second place. Ramp is in 4th, and then Cut is in 2nd. So it's down to Posick and Mars who's going to be overtaken. We don't know if Posick has managed to go over the 399 points, which will move them down. But this has turned out to be a crazy 5th zone here, and Mars also pulling a max distance, so this is going to be tough, but he does have the 4 peppers.
Talk about one of the hardest games for Mars to have to earn this. If he somehow pulls this off, I will lose my mind. But either way, you should be proud of what he's pulled off so far. I mean, the fact that he survived, and of course he's probably praying, finally gets some good fortune as Cut and Ramp both get taken out, putting Mars in 2nd. And now just trying to take that first place spot if he can, but Daddy P with such an advantage, it's going to be tough to do. Oliver is going to be taken out from this one. It's going to be the hands of Owl. Owl now getting tagged from afar as well. Dizrod gets a final elimination on Draven. Draven, our very, very aggressive player that we saw earlier, take out Cut, our second place player, finally gets taken out from the lobby.
Yeah, and this is becoming big, right? Most of the players have made it into 5th zone, and this is the game that's been the most stacked so far. But Mars getting focused. He's in the hard build. This could be very, very dangerous. He's managed to create space for himself, creating some more builds. This is exactly what he needs to do. And I think the teams, all the players around him, are starting to stop focus. But no. Seems like Lamb does not like Mars at all, but also getting hit by a stink. I think the whole lobby right now has just decided to throw focus onto him. He has secured positioning over at least 2 other players, which is Ramp and Coot right now. However, being sprayed again by the whole lobby. Still, he's done a great job of creating space, but surely this is going to make it difficult for him to create enough materials for the end game and really keep stacked. But he does have those 3 peppers. He has enough materials to get into the first moving zone, and he needs potentially a refresh. But I just saw Posick still alive, about a layer above him and to the right as well, so they could engage on this first moving zone. Hopefully Mars is just going to pop this pepper and get ahead, but there's a lot in his way to stop him from claiming the 2nd or 1st place slides.
It's such a difficult game for Mars in game number 6, and he's outlasted all of the challenges so far. We'll see if that will continue. A sorry bad push with ultimate high ground, and a very, very solid opportunity to win this game. Meanwhile, we'll keep a close eye on that Elin feed for any of our top players. Posick, Hush, Mars, and Daddy P in the top 6 currently. Iris, Verminus, and a few others are going to get taken out. Posic's actually going to get one. That's big. Posic, one of the only players in contention to take that second place spot from Mars. I believe Daddy P is still alive. We haven't seen him in quite some time, but you got to think he is. Sorry, Bad Push still has high ground. We're still keeping a close eye on that Elim feed. 33 players remain. Game number 6 for the PlayVS Championship here in spring 2021. It all comes down to this with our collegiate players.
Yeah, and Mars, 18 builds left to his name. He's got another Pepper. He's going to try to get ahead. Potentially going to use these old builds, getting behind the player, get that refresh, but no, decides to go against. He's looking for free shots. He doesn't want to psycho in. He has enough to box himself up. This is going to get him more and more and more placement points. Every second matters that he stays alive, and we still don't see where Big Daddy P is. Has he been eliminated earlier and we just haven't seen him, or has he been a sleeper this game? Mars still alive on the high ground. Being eliminated. Harsh right now. Chapter seems to have taken the high ground too, but Mars still alive. Getting tagged. He's down to 21 HP. Slows things down. The player jumps in his box. He does a great job getting out. Beautiful mechanics to keep himself moving through the end game in space. But he's got no mats. He has no mats. 445 points left. If he manages to get focused by a single player now, it's over for him.
You gotta think this might be enough to hold on that second place. I don't know if Posic's been taken out. I'm not sure if I've seen him in the Elim feed, but Mars, what a game he has had here in game number 6. All odds against him. Can he get the pick on Owl? No, not just yet. Mars needs this. This would be huge if finally does get taken out in 7th or 8th place by Agenda.
Yeah, Goaty left alive, 335. Posic must still be alive. He is. You can see him spraying down below. So a 7. But a Harpoon elimination from 7 in the end game. A little bit of BM at this point, as we've seen. But 7 is still alive. Posic still alive in low ground. Posic must be looking to get that first place or the second place over currently where Mars is. This is all down to him. I don't know how many materials he currently has at this moment, but we've seen no one really securing the high ground. Everyone all playing that low and mid. So many people just vouching for as many points as possible. Dizrod picking up a large shot, but not managed to claim the elimination. He's been picked in the back, low. 17 builds remaining. Hits a big shot, but ends up being picked up himself. Posic now has the high ground as well. This should be a commanding victory for him. It's a 1v1 between Posic and Owl as well. 339 points against the 473 of Posic. Could this be a first place for Posic overall in this game and the tournament? He hits Owl for white and picks up the victory royale in the final match. We have to know what happened to Daddy P that game. We didn't manage to see him at all, but every player underneath from the 2nd down to the 6th all popped off. What a final game.
What a series, a 6-game series that we saw. We saw it all. We saw consistency from the likes of Daddy P, from Posic, from Mars. We saw big plays come through, so many big plays from Ramp and many, many others. It was a remarkable series, and I gotta say, these players certainly impressed. Late game, of course, as well. Posic going big when he needed to. The question is, was it enough? When did Daddy P get taken out? Because I think both you and I missed it in our Elim feed. He had a
64.
significant advantage, an 80-point advantage.
I've just seen he went down at 64.
Did he really?
So
no way.
I was checking out throughout the whole game to see if he was in the Elim feed the whole way, and we must have missed it. But this was big for Coot as well, being eliminated. So we don't currently know how many points Daddy P ended up going down on. We don't know what the final leaderboard's gone out, but potentially Posic was able to clutch that up in the final game. And you know, what a final match. In particular, we managed to see a little bit of BM just from 7 getting the Harpoon elimination, and this was the final moment. This potentially was the tournament winning moment from Posic, picking up that final elimination and the victory royale coming out of game number 6. What a series of matches we've just seen. I'm kind of mind blown, to be honest.
And I both. And Posic hits him with, I believe that was the Pokemon creators emote as well at the end. Big shout out to Posic, making big plays when it matters the most. That's what big time players do. Posic with a huge game number 6. Mars shows up and places top 8. What will that do for the standings? Well, guess what? We'll have the reveal when we come back from this short break. What a tournament it has been for the NA East Finals, putting on an absolute treat in the PlayVS Spring 21 Collegiate Championship featuring Fortnite. I cannot believe what we have seen so far. In the end, Daddy P came into game number 6 with a 60-point lead, a significant advantage. The question was, Reese, did he hold on?
I can't wait to find out, in all honesty. We saw him go down earlier on. I've not done the quick mental maths to figure out what the rest of the leaderboard's looking right, but there were a lot of players, 4 at the nipping at his heels, able to climb up that leaderboard at this point. You know, we saw Posick pick up the victory royale. We've got to think that's it. We want to check on what has happened. What is the final leaderboard results? Who has managed to take home the first place slot? And that goes to Posick.
Oh my God.
482 points. What a clutch in his final game, picking up the final victory royale of all 6 matches today. And not only that, claiming that first place slot in the tournament at the same time. Mars in second place with 461. Incredible consistency throughout the entire day. And we have to shine some light on Daddy P, don't miss. We have to give him his props where props is due. The first 5 games was absolutely incredible. He was so far ahead. Obviously, game number 6 didn't end up going his way, but really incredible gameplay from everyone on this side of the leaderboards.
Massive congratulations goes to Posick for being your champion of the NA East Finals for the PlayVS Spring 21 Collegiate Championship featuring Fortnite. A unbelievable display of skill, clutching up when it matters the most. I said it before the break, big-time players make big-time plays when it matters the most. In Game 6, he clutched up. Let's take a look at our second page here, and you'll see Owl in 11th place. Talk about a great second half of the tournament, as Owl was far down the standings and performed very well in Games 4, 5, and 6. Really started to dominate the Dirty Docks fight early on against Thanks, was able to maintain control, was able to make it to late game, won a game, actually got a victory royale. Great consistency from Owl as well. Anyone else stand out to you here on page number 2?
Yeah, we saw 7. You know, we saw him a little bit lower down the leaderboards overall, but really kind of clutching up in the last kind of half of that and moving on his way up into the top 19. Again, second page, still really good. There's 100 players here, and managing to get into that top 20 is still absolutely fantastic. They did win the previous one back in fall, but still really good performance for him, and very huge performance. We get another shout out to Posick up in the top as well.
Take home the first place prize, and of course Scholastic Awards. $50,000 in Scholastic Awards being given to these players to support their collegiate careers. It's amazing to see these players obviously managing school while also managing Fortnite and competing at a top level. It is darn impressive. So kudos to every single player that competed. You'll walk away with something for qualifying, for making it here in the NA East Finals. And it's going to actually wrap up our NA East Finals. We have NA West, of course, coming shortly. But Reese, it was an absolute pleasure. You crushed it, mate. Any final words, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, the pleasure was all mine, firstly, I must say. And honestly, shout out to all the players that have been playing today. The games were so good. So shout out to all the PlayVS collegiate players who've been in. Absolutely fantastic. Good job, NA East region.
Love it. Love your show. You're showing some love and respect to the players, but I got to give all the love and respect to you, man. You killed it. Big brain, analytics, and breakdown the entire time. Make sure to check this man out on YouTube, his VOD reviews, and the like. And, of course, a massive thank you to all the players. Indeed, congratulations to all the players. They'll be taking home some part of the prizing. We have our NA West broadcast coming up next. We're going to take a break. Of course, don't go anywhere. NA West, if it's even half as good as NA East was, it's going to be an amazing tournament. I am so excited for the NA West broadcast, which will be coming to you live right after this break.